Still, you're Hey, Charles, are you here? Testing 1, 2. You got to unmute your mic.
Yeah, I'm on. Unmuted it. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Make sure you hit the top of the page right there where you see the comments. Then you can see what people are saying to you.
Okay.
See where that's at?
Uh-huh.
Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. You hit the private chat though. So you need to go to the comments part where it says comments, Charles.
Yes, I'm in there.
Okay, because you wrote hi to me in private chat. That's what I'm saying. Let me play this one video thing real quick before we give.
Welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark.
Thank you so much for coming in. We are going to welcome back to Child Abuse Awareness, Charles Rogers. So everything that Charles has ever discussed and talked about basically relates to the Zionism, where he's exposing the Zionism. If you saw the front of the page, it shows Robert Beach, which is his cousin, and Ron Brill, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Without further ado, I'll let you explain to people why you wanted to say this about exposing Zionism.
Well, I guess from my lifelong experience with, child sex trafficking and counterterrorism and counter child trafficking since my childhood. the people through the years that I acquired as suspects in the domestic terrorism were pretty much involved in child sex trafficking. And believe it or not, so was Eric Rudolph, my brother Fred, and of course my cousin Robert Veach, who, recruited my brother into the Bentley Farm child trafficking scandals before they got into the plans for domestic terrorism in the early 90s. One of the things that John Ramsey's oldest daughter, Beth Ramsey, knew was the plots that they were setting up to start the terrorist attacks in the 1990s. So, becoming a witness to the Atlanta child murders after the arrest of Wayne Williams, some of the faces that I saw down at the Chattahoochee River that night, with flashlights, looking down at the two victims that were being, gang raped. I was able to see some of their faces, and Ron Burrell, he was one of them. Bertie Marcus, he was another one. And, of course, Ted Turner.
Yeah, I don't have his
And then,
picture, but a lot of people know Ted Turner, being that Turner Broadcasting.
yes, ma'am. And, he was married twice to, Jane Fonda. And, history tells us how she earned her nickname as Hanaway Jane. And why I've given him the nickname Tiptoe Ted was, his involvement in the Atlanta child murders, and with these members of the MOSSAD, who were in partnership with the Bentleys, who in their form were supposed white supremacists. And we know, white supremacy speaks out against the Jews and this, that, and the other. But and Zionism, when these people are very much Zionists, some of them are even Christian Zionists, partnership with the Zionists, Jewish Zionists.
But I'm going to be sharing just going through the pictures and playing it while we're talking, so that a lot of people can see the multitude of people. As you don't have to explain who they are, but you know what I mean.
Yes,
So
ma'am. But all of these people have been linked into my investigations after I was drafted into counterterrorism by the governor's office of the state of North Carolina, July the 30th, 1996. And that is how I pretty much got in charge of the what we call the Oklahoma City and Centennial Park attacks case, because it's the same case. It was done under the guise of the Christian identity movement, and that's what the media went out there and was blaming it with. But in actuality, it was a partnership between, you know, Jewish supremacists and of course, white supremacists, anarchists. And even though these people attend churches and stuff like that, some of them synagogues, um, they're pretty much connected in their criminal activities together in um, everything from all forms of organized crimes, but foremost child sex trafficking and ritual abuse. So, what we're starting to see happen right now um, is the breakdown of the mainstream media and the information coming out through alternative news sources is this Zionist state of Israel that we were pretty much groomed and brainwashed and indoctrinated into believing um, uh, was, our duties as, Christians, you know, or Jews or whoever. We were really in, you know, in with the stuff through these major televangelists, like Oral Roberts, um, Jimmy Swaggart, and John Hagee really is the biggest televangelist that's always pushed for the support of Israel. And what we're finding out is the Israel that we have been supporting is not the Israel of the Bible, because these people that we are supporting are those who their belief is to eliminate all Christians. And their doctrine is found in the Talmud. And it's a doctrine that I've classified, and many others have well, is really the doctrine of pedophiles when you get to certain parts of it. It was the unwritten law at the time of Jesus that he condemned, that it was the culture of the Pharisees. So the Pharisees, they were engaged in pedophilia, and whatever stage they got into child sacrifices, pretty much occurred multiple times. It was why each tribe of Israel was divorced. And when I was in North Carolina, I would hear the stuff, and of course, I heard it out of my older brother Fred, that that we were the lost tribes of Israel, and this, that, and the other. And I'd hear the same thing in Murphy, North Carolina, and other parts about being the lost tribes of Israel. My response to that today is the same thing as I responded to it back then. Yeah, you're correct. You are the lost house of Israel because you got divorced. You went against the covenant of who we know as Yahweh, the God of Israel, and you violated his commandments, and you sacrificed children, and you got divorced. It's just back then they did it in the name of these Babylonian or Egyptian gods and deities, pretty much the same name. I mean, same characters, but different names to the language, Ishtar and Tammuz. And they, this is all pretty much a mingle. They mingled these traditions in with theirs, and it's really what we call Zionism. When you had people in Marietta, supposedly the new order of the Ku Klux Klan in partnership with the MOSSAD, we got a problem.
Yes.
Ron Burrell, Bernie Marcus, Ken Langone, and Arthur Blank, to my understanding, were all members of the IDF.
Hold on a minute. Let me try this other layout because I want to try to see. I don't know why this is showing half the screen. I don't want it showing like this. You know what I mean?
Yes, ma'am.
And so I'm trying to figure out why. You know, you see what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay, we'll try this layout. But I don't see it's got both our faces up here, and I don't know if people can see the screen. I wish people would tell me whether or not they could see the pictures when I had it up there. Could you see the pictures when I was flashing them across?
I saw them a while ago.
Yeah, I didn't know if, when I was showing them up here whether or not they
Mhm.
were shown or whether our names up here was covering it up. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you flashed through a lot of faces, including Bill Hudson, my
Right.
brother Fred. I mean, pretty much the people I have named, Albert Samples. I mean, I saw all of it, so I imagine everyone else did.
Yeah,
But
the one I didn't show, I got to go to another folder that says, get over there and do this, the vetch guy.
well, the deal was whenever um, my dad had hired this, Jim Stubbs guy, Ed Bentley Jr.'s brother-in-law. Um, um, my dad got both of my grandparents, sets of grandparents upset. And I mean, his dad had been deceased, but his mother and, of course, my maternal grandparents got upset when he had Jim Stubbs to kill this goat to show us how to cut these goats because they were
Oh boy.
prepared for a race war. And my grandparents, his mother and my grandmother, maternal grandmother and grandfather, they were upset. They said our children are not going out here and becoming any part of any race war. And this was before the stuff happened over there on Bentley Farm.
And we know that even though, you know, you was hearing some of this stuff that was going on in the 90s when they started up, we know that that's been going on for a lot of decades, even before the 90s.
Well, there was just that time, back when the racial tensions in Atlanta were flaring because we were coming out of the late 1960s. Then, of course, the
Right.
Vietnam War was going on. We had the weatherman movement that later became the Weather Underground. And of course, a lot of that was promoted by these who we call the deep state, um, to push toward a collapse in the U.S. government. They had pretty much fulfilled the 40 um, agendas that Cleon Skousen had written in his book called The Naked Communist back in 1959, because he was a federal agent, the FBI, that he went in and started attending, meetings with American communist parties. And in 1959, he wound up writing his book about the 40 objectives that they had planned to use on the United States in order to cause it to collapse from within. And as we can see today, we have far exceeded greatly those 40 agendas that he had listed in his book. And, of course, he was a Mormon, so everyone who was a member of the Mormon church, they read that book, The Naked Communist. Some people have read it. There's a lot of people who are not familiar with it, but that was pretty much part of their agendas and objectives that they had planned all the way back to the meeting on Jekyll Island in 1910. And so it has been a really long, drawn out process to get this country sold on this Zionist idea to support this state of Israel, who is really not supported by the majority of the Jewish community. So it doesn't represent them. And what we're finding out with a lot of these Christian Zionists who are pushing for it, appear to be in partnership with these people in child sex trafficking and the aspects of domestic terrorism.
Right.
So we have to go back and reevaluate everything within ourselves to, prepare ourselves for when God slaps us in the face with the facts. Because if we don't act now, that's we're going to be wind up, in a state of warfare of the people fighting for, or I should say, controlled opposition, because that's what it's all about, is controlled opposition. My brother sat there and explained to Mr. Kiss, after we had talked our way out of, getting killed 2 days after my birthday in 1997, that they were out here fighting the cabal, the Jewish mafia, the MOSSAD, and that's who they were fighting. That's who they were going against, who were sex trafficking and murdering children. Well, they contradicted themselves, because one of the reasons why they wanted to kill me was because I didn't show up in Cumming, Georgia, that afternoon that Levi Frady wound up abducted by his daddy and that bunch, from his mother's home, and later murdered because they were going to try to set me up for his homicide and the Centennial Park attack. So they thought, but I did not wind up in Cumming, and we know what happened to Levi, and that my brother admitted to a part in his homicide and other children's homicide. They did not debunk
What's going on?
that my statement that they had also
Are you
murdered
there?
John Bonet. Can you hear me? Hello?
Charles, are you there?
Can you still hear me? I'm still
I'll
here.
change the screen so that maybe he can hear you, because I don't see your mic or nothing now.
My mic isn't mute. Can you hear me?
Charles,
Can you hear me?
uh,
Hello?
Can y'all hear him okay? Testing 1, 2, Charles. Let me give you a call right quick. Let me try to remove and re-add. I can't hear him, so I'm trying to get it. Can't hear him now. I don't know why. Is this any better? I
Uh,
don't
you,
know.
you can't hear me now? Hey, Danny.
Charles, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
No, I don't know why. I'll mute my mic if y'all could hear because I can't hear him.
Oh, boy. Mm. Hey, Danny. This thing's not letting me speak. They can't hear me. Can you help me with it? Yeah. It was just working, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Can anybody hear me now?
You got your mic on?
Yeah, mic's right there. Not on mute. Mute. Mic's on.
Darlene, can you hear us? What the hell?
Let's see if it want to refresh.
Okay, I'm back. Is this any better?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Can you hear us? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can y'all hear me?
Yep. All right. You're back on.
Chris can hear you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It wasn't showing up mute over here or anything. So I couldn't. Thank you, Chris. So I don't know what happened. I was giving giving the account about what we had heard out of my brother Fred, and of course,
Can y'all hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Chris can hear you.
Good. But anyway, they were
And I'm having to hear you.
they were in partnership with the with these people, the MOSSAD, Jeffrey Epstein, Ron Brill, I mean, Les Wexner, Larry Fink, and all these guys were all pretty much Israeli citizens, dual citizens, U.S. Israeli citizens. And of course, the Bentleys, white supremacists, and of course, that bunch up in Murphy, North Carolina, all pretty much in partnership under the guise of the Aryan Republican Army. Now, the Midwestern Bank Bandits was this gang of bank robbers. And my brother Fred was a member of that bank robbing gang. So was Roger Nance, Chevy Kehoe, Israel Keys, Eric Rudolph, and of course everybody knows about Kevin Langan and try to remember that other guy's name. I think it was David Guthrie. And these guys were pretty much involved in the Oklahoma City bombing. So all of this stuff is connected together, just under one single word: Zionism. So this is how they support their operations and their agendas, and
I think I know what's.
is through child sex trafficking.
Can you hear me, Charles?
Yes, I can hear you. And of course, domestic terrorism. So when we have a mass shooting, we have to ask ourselves, okay, are they connected? Well, a lot of them are. Now, don't get me wrong. You will get a lone wolf operator once in a while that might pop up, but the rest are usually coached,
I think I
provoked.
know what's going on. Can I tell you?
Sure.
Can I
Can you hear me? Can everyone still hear me?
I think they messing with my volume on my computer because I'm not able to hear at all on my computer. So I had to log on to my phone, and so I could hear you through the phone. I can't hear through my computer at all here.
Okay. All right.
Like they blocked me on my computer from hearing, so they're trying to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, of course, you're going to have interference when it gets
Can you
deep
hear
in.
me? I think they messed with my volume on my computer because I'm not able to hear at all on my computer. So I had to log on to my
So,
and so I can hear you through the phone. I can hear through my computer at all.
well, you're out in the distance, so kind of like we can't
They
hear you that
blocked
way.
me on my computer from hearing, so they're trying to stop it.
Oh, that's somebody else. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, so the what is happening right now is the uh, bombing of Gaza has backfired on Netanyahu tremendously because I believe that October the 9th.
That's him playing the. I hear my echo over there on his.
And it's backfired. They went in there and they killed the journalists that were covering the stories. I forgot how many journalists. It was well over 150 journalists that have been killed over there in that conflict so far. And their attack on Iran has backfired. So now even the Iranians have gone in and just really almost crushed them in Israel. So it's like their whole plan here for their New World Order objective is starting to fall apart on them again. And people are not buying into this Zionism stuff anymore and are waking up to it. And anyone that would teach racial hatred and turn around and just murder unlimited amount of children through the decades, they're not human. I mean, they're just they appear human, they appear to have a soul, but these people don't have souls in them. That's why we've seen the genocide in Gaza. When we look at the Sendero Luminoso of Peru, known as the Shining Path terrorist organization of the late 1980s and 90s, and Tupac Amaru, terrorist organizations, Marxist. Well, who was behind that? Who supported people like Abdel Guzman? Who started the Shining Path terrorist organization? He was the head guy. And it goes back into the same thing. People like Ray and Sam Duncan. A lot of these people like John Ramsey, my cousin Robert Veach, Ron Brill, because they wanted to bust it loose in two countries in the 1990s, the Republic of Peru and the United States. If they could cause chaos and anarchy, then they could accomplish their annihilation of the Christian identity they call movement. So it's always been against the Christians, and it's not. You can't sit here and blame it on what we call the Jews, because there's a difference between Zionism and really the Judaism of the Hasidic Jews. These people have been living in peace with the Muslim and Christian community of Gaza and West Bank well before the Balfour Declaration was made. And after the Holocaust, the Palestinians welcomed these people in, and next thing you know, they were being invaded by these people who were not even of the lineage of Israel nor Judah, but Ashkenazi Jews. They're called Khazars, the Khazarian Mafia, because that's exactly who we're dealing with. They're no more of Jewish lineage than Mickey Mouse. They assumed the Jewish identity. Some of their targets on the morning of January the 17th, 1997, when they hit the Northside Family Planning Services abortion provider there what is now Sandy Springs, Georgia, there in Atlanta. They their primary target was really DeVry Institute of Technology. It's just the Northside Family Planning Services was going to deter the police away from these places. They're on West Paces Ferry Road, just right down the road from the governor's mansion of Georgia. Alternative target was the Hubble School, where what is today West Paces Academy, and there's un-Jewish children who attended school then, and still Jewish children attend that private school today. And then the other alternative target was this Jewish school there where West Paces Ferry turns on this other road and runs up into the community of Vinings, where the original Home Depot corporate headquarters was located before they constructed the newer and current location of the corporate headquarters. So the June 19th, 1997 attack on the Home Depot corporate headquarters was to make it appear that the Jewish people and community were under attack by these white supremacists. And, and my buddy Rick Jewell, here he was at that time looking like a suspect instead of a hero, just to keep the media attention drawn away from Murphy, North Carolina, until we could shut down these terrorist attacks. So Jewish Zionism was working in partnership with white Christian Zionism. And that's the connection of the two of them. Eric Rudolph, as we know, was John Benet Ramsey's water skiing instructor during the summer of 1996. Even though the Ramseys owned a home there on Lake Chattooga in Hiawassee, Georgia. Okay, people like Ron Burrill, my cousin Robert Beach, John Mark Carr's dad, and even John Mark Carr himself, we're in the same clique with these people that were tied in with Zell Miller, Johnny Isaacson, Jimmy Carter, and that's what we've heard Donald Trump call the deep state, and this criminal element. But yet, on the other hand, we've seen him flip flop on the issue regarding Gaza, because even Tony Blair, Prime Minister of Canada, was wanting to cash in on the Gaza there. Just go in and invade it, take it, and all of a sudden these billionaires are going to go in there and build it up for themselves with the way they want it. I mean, and there's a lot of people that's not really too supportive of that, because we're looking at genocide, and we're looking at the same agenda that they had in mind here in the United States in the 1990s, if we had not succeeded in shutting them down. It's just they're going to want to start moving back toward that direction again if they could. But at this point, the world's starting to see Zionism for what it truly is: the most racist, sick, and twisted, evil culture that we're dealing with. These people have no heart, they have no soul. And the crimes that they have committed and continue to commit today is just beyond reason and, people's imagination. But yet, this is the reality of what we're dealing with. It's like the, Black Panthers, they were the Black Zionists, okay? You have that movement in Atlanta. I'm trying to remember the name of them. But these people teach that the, Caucasian people are the devils and that the black people are the true Israelites and all the white devils should die and all that. And, it still goes in for their existence. Where do they get their money from? Who do they get their funding from? And it all still goes back to the same people in Georgia. And yes, they have operations in all across the United States because some are in the entertainment industry. Some are in the lumber industry, oil industry, manufacturing, technology. There's not a place in our society that we don't have bad apples in. They're in our churches. They're in the synagogues. They put up these fake personalities and depict each other as really great, caring, humanitarian people and philanthropists and all of that. And I'm not trying to knock off philanthropists, but we know that the term philanthropist for these people is just a fancy term for pedophile. Because so many people that have come after me, even after stopping their terrorist attacks, which before my dad passed away, they were not well informed. They had been lied to, and everybody hates a liar. And more so, everybody hates an informant, especially you get up there around Murphy, North Carolina, and places like that. But when it came out that, to Eric Rudolph's mother, Pat Murphy, a lady who had actually gone to Elohim City and checked out their views because of their beliefs being similar to hers, had her leaving that place because it was just too radical for her. Well, once she found out, that her son Eric, and just remember, he's not been charged with these crimes yet, so he's still presumed innocent until proven guilty. Right along with these others. Once his mother found out that he was involved in many of these child murder cases with these people, resulted in him almost getting killed twice by her. He managed to smooth talk the second time that he had his discussion with her, but he had to stand on this side of this mountain, kind of up toward the top, and holler down to her because she had vowed to shoot him if she was to ever see him again. And he sat there and he yelled out to where the people there in the community could hear him. and admitted to his involvement in John Benet Ramsey's murder, Levi Frades, and the three boys out there in West Memphis, Arkansas, Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers. But of course, it was everybody else's fault but his. And that's the way these people are. It's you know, they'll do stuff to you. Well, if you hadn't done so and so, such and such, then you wouldn't have had to worry about this. You know, well, whenever it comes down to them getting caught with their britches down on doing something, well, it was this person's fault. It was that person's fault. And always to blame it on somebody else. So he managed to step out of the wooded area where she could see him and she didn't shoot him. But I know what kind of words that she used to him out there in the U.S. courthouse in Birmingham, Alabama, the day that he entered his deal with the Department of Justice to return to Atlanta and plead guilty to the Centennial Park attack. So this same, you know, all of this white supremacy, black supremacy, and they'll do the same thing with the, you know, Latin population, people from Mexico and all that. And they support it all. It's everything from the drug trafficking, human trafficking, the whole 9 yards. And they'll turn around and they'll say, well, let's blame it on the Jews. Well, the Jews, the real Jewish people, the ones who have been living there in Palestine for centuries, who, you know, whose land that really belongs to, it's not their, it's not, they're not the problem. It's the Zionists. So it's not a Christian problem. It's a Christian Zionism. It's still Zionism. If you believe that you have a right to go out here and murder somebody and their family because they do not believe the way that you believe, then you're a self-righteous, self-serving individual. And we know there's no help for these people. Some of them look like they're and appear like they're some of the nicest people in the world, will do anything for you. They're harmless, wouldn't hurt a fly. But don't be surprised if you trust these people that it won't backfire on you one way or the other just by being associated with them. My situation, I got dragged into this mess like a lot of other people did. It's just I had God on my side to help guide me through this and protect me to where I could pull this off, to where we could get this information out to everyone today in hopes of getting these people brought to justice. But the Americans' biggest problem right now is they're more busy listening to the preachers than they are taking it in prayer right now, and pretty much seeing what our Heavenly Father has to say about it. And yeah, I see that. So that's where we're at. That's why I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention, that just because it may appear to be biblical, may appear to be godly, just because it carries the name of Israel, doesn't mean it's the same Israel referring to in the scriptures. If anything, it's really the seed of the Antichrist, because I've never read anywhere in the scriptures where Jesus said it was okay to kill anyone unless they abused one of his children of God. And these people's mind, he's burning in human excrement in hell, and everyone who follows him, must die. That is the culture of Jewish Zionism. It's the culture of the Pharisees. It never died away. It just transformed to these opinions of these different rabbis that would agree or disagree with each other. And it finally got written down from the oral law that they had conjured up. After the Babylonian exile, because they had Judah, where Judea had abandoned the Torah and had already turned toward the traditions of the Babylonians. They were already burning incense and baking cakes to the Queen of Heaven. So they've never been able, as far as Jewish Zionism, they've never been able to get past the abominations that they did to cause the Messiah to come and then turn around and reject him. So they may have their season, but they're not going to have their new world order like they want. They're not going to reduce the world to maintain a population of 500 million, like they had stated on their Georgia Guidestones. And a lot of people are not favorable of the city of Elberton reconstructing those Guidestones because of what they said after this great apocalyptic event. Well, that 263-pound hydrogen bomb that was set to detonate 36 hours from 7 or 7:30 p.m. Evening of January 28th of 1998 over there at Cook Ridge in Murphy, North Carolina. That shows us the magnitude that these people are willing to go and cost life in order to complete their agendas. If they're willing to murder their own members of their own families, there is nothing that you can put past these people. So, I just find it hard to believe that if God is going to bless those who bless Israel, okay, and we're sitting here with all this corruption, violence, and all of that, well, that should be enough signs to let the American people know that we are not supporting the right Israel. The right Israel, if we're going to support, is going to be who we recognize as those who are non-Zionist. Because I'll testify this day that Jesus is not boiling in any excrement in hell. It's actually the one who gave me these instructions back in 1973 in my second near-death experience. So I've been to the beyond and back twice when I was a child. I may not agree with the way Christians observe him and, honor him, but I care enough about the people to send this message out in hopes that they will open their eyes to the truth, because the truth can set us free. And the truth can set us free from this corruption. It can set us free from this deadly contract we have with these Zionists. And once we can bring these people to justice, the rest of their ideology will just die away. People will see exactly that it's just nothing but the doctrine of hate. As I tell people, the Israelis out there hate everybody in the world but themselves. And,
Yeah, as you, Charles, as you said, that there are a lot of these people, they're trying to portray themselves like they're Jewish and stuff when they're not. Um, I wanted to bring light to what a post that you had at Facebook, okay?
mm-hmm.
That's okay. Where you said good old Marietta attorney Fred Bentley Jr. of Bentley Law Group and his architect buddy Rex Harriman. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Rex Harriman. Yeah. All right.
They along with my cousin Robert Beach, which his picture is right here at YouTube. You see his picture, Robert Beach. And my late brother Fred's good old buddies. He was in my home in 2013 when my cousin Robert confessed to murdering his brother Wayne by poison with the help of my brother Fred. And yes, Fred Bentley Jr. also acknowledged his part in the plot to murder my cousin Wayne. Just one of the unwelcome visits I had in 2013, 12 and 2013. But the second was more than just my brother Fred and Roger Nance. Well, a lot of people keep saying, well, why is he still here? The thing about it is, he had so many attempts on his life, my buddy Charles did, okay? They even brought Fred's second cousin, Ed Bentley Jr., who tried to make me be a judicial porn star. You put
adult
judicial.
porn. Yeah, it's supposed to say
child
adult.
porn
You know how
star.
these smartphones are. They make their corrections.
Yeah. So at 73 for Cobb County to frame my dad, but I was too sharp for the idiots. But yeah, the first time I met Rex, I believe it or not, was a night of June 19, 1982 at some guy named Zach's home off of Powers Ferry Road before I became an eyewitness to the Atlanta child murders. However, was also the first night I would see Fred Bentley Jr., Ed Bentley Jr., Ron Reel, which Rob Reel's picture is right there on the YouTube on the right hand side. Barney Marcus, Ted Turner, and my cousin Robert Beach at the river during the gang rapes of two black teenage boys. My brother Fred and Roger were supposed to be forced to participate in, when in fact it was just a ruse to get me to be lured to the river that night in hopes of saving his brother and his buddy Roger. Well, I couldn't see everyone's faces, nor I see how many were there, but a large number of people before I left my way out of there. And yeah, they were going to kill you. That was a trap to try to get you there to dispose of you.
That's right.
So here's to Brad Bentley Jr. and Rex Harriman, because exactly 15 years later, from that night, I stopped the truck bombing of the Home Depot corporate headquarters and came across Ron Brill for the second time a week afterwards at Cumberland Mall and introduced himself to me as a friend of my brother Fred, my cousin Robert Beach, and Roger Nance. He said he wasn't as impressed at my stopping their attempted bombing of the Home Depot corporate headquarters as he was exactly 15 years earlier when I showed up at the Chattahoochee during the rapes of their human sacrifices at 16 years of age and bravely demanded the safe return of my brother and his buddy Roger and bluffed my way out of my buddy Roger Miller uh, while he waited up the road for your return. That really impressed everyone at the Chattahoochee River that night. So the second time I saw Rex was in Andrews, North Carolina in September of 1999 after another knockout bout in Adela with some guy my size, but the third time was the second time I seen Fred Bentley Jr. in person. And yes, John Ramsey and Judge McLaughlin invited themselves in with other officials in Cobb Judicial Circuit, including Grady Moore. But yeah, even Fred brother Randall Bentley Jr. invited himself in my home right along with Rex. So if you ever want to go hunting, just go get with Fred Bentley Jr. and he can take you to any part of the country to engage in hunting parties, but not for bear, not deer, but boys, girls, men, and women alike. Fred Bentley Jr. can hook you up with his cronies with any victim of any age. Yeah, they even brought Mark Payne, the guy I knocked out of Papado. Is that how you say it?
Mark Payne, Papados, yeah,
Yeah.
2006.
Yeah, on Windy Hill Road in 2006 because Jeff Carrier told me, told that the fat and ugly Steve Gould with a sissy mustache to take me off and get rid of me. So, of course, they invited themselves into my home as well that day in July of 2013. The first time I ever saw Jeff Carrier was around July the 7th, 2001, after after Charles escaped his brother Fred's automobile during an abduction by his brother Fred, Roger Nance, and Craig Manier. Jeff's awaiting. Jeff was awaiting around the corner for Fred to pick him up, but you escaped and hid under some poison oak before they could run to your location. But you know another uh, Steve Gould, who's a great guy who attended Sprayberry, but this sissy named Steve Gould attended Wheeler and part of the Butt Buddy Bunch in that school you cannot trust around little girls nor little boys, especially black teenage boys, at because Steve Gould loves his black male lovers young, so they cannot fight back and whip his butt when he and the rest kills him. But also bear in mind that these are just my accusations and for education and awareness purposes, and all parties implicated and presumed innocent, well, are presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. There's FedEx and then there's FredX, Fredrex. So they
Yeah,
look
Frederick.
so sweet together, you know.
Yeah.
So, and then this one guy was wondering, he says, "Sir, you bring up Wayne now and then." That's what Wayne Bitch, cousin, you know. But
Beach.
I'm afraid that, yeah, but I can't remember how he fits into the picture here. Or, in other words, how did he become a victim of those scumbags? And that high school photo you showed once, he looked exactly like one of my old Stockbridge upperclassmen. Name escapes me. I wonder if the Marietta thing had anything to do with all the scum and sludge that was going on in the Stockbridge during the same time period. I do remember a Jerry Cole saying to me at 14 and 15 years of age, right about the time the whole missing and murder thing seemed to start, him saying, "We're fixing to stir up the uh, poop pot." I'm not going to say the word exactly here. Uh, Whatever that was supposed to mean, what with law enforcement, trafficking drugs, and likely being complicit in the murder of young kids like Levi Brady and John Bonet, I wouldn't be surprised if they're all in the same bed together. The bigger question is why. So then here's this. You want me to read your answer?
You can.
Okay, it says it's very confusing. They cannot stand the normal function of society of today, not back then, because all children are to them are spoiled little brats, and the average Christian family, especially in the black and Hispanic communities, deserve to die for the NWO objective. They do it in the same name of anarchy under the guise of white supremacy, but in actually partnered with the Mossad and Khazarian mafia who believe they have the right to rule the world once they take control of Jerusalem. So to fund their luxuries and to promote drug trafficking, the number one commodity about gold, oil, lumber, manufacturing, and all else is adrenochrome. The ancients used the pagan religions to try for child sacrifices. After the Babylonian exile, after abandoning the Torah, many rabbis started making their opinions, and through hundreds of years after the reconstruction of the temple of Yahweh, Ja- you put Jason sold out the Levitical priesthood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and mingled Greek mythology and customs into common Judean practices. So by the time Jesus came, the Pharisees engaged in child sacrifices on top of child rape under their so called unwritten law of Moses. They created, uh, known as the Talmud today, and that is the true culture of the pedo elite. Yes, many are professed Christians and Jews, but their objective is a one world judicial system which gives them authority over the entire world to maintain immunity from their addiction to this drug, they call it, which gives an euphoric effect they prefer above every drug in the world, such as what Eric Rudolph had told you, that weird question and all that kind of stuff.
That's correct.
Just
Yeah,
many are.
there's been some people killed. I've lost some friends,
Uh
some really good people. Beth Ramsey, at Darrington, and her friend Paula. They were
Right.
wonderful people. Buddy, Bobby Miller, the Suches, Terry Owenby up in Murphy, North Carolina. I think the FBI's lost a couple agents over this.
Yeah.
Um, there's, uh, Randy Thompson, Forsyth County Sheriff's Department. He later became a fireman when he was with Forsyth County.
Yeah.
They handled the explosives after we were retrieved from the baseball fields in northeast Georgia.
Yeah, I got a little bit more if you want me to finish reading that post.
Yeah. Well, let me finish this first. But
Okay. All right.
the explosives were planted out as far as Beaufort, Georgia, Gwinnett County on down to Ball Ground in Cherokee County, Georgia, because people over there in Ball Ground that attended the baseball game on June 3rd, 1997 remembers me showing up and stopping that bomb attack at the Little League baseball game.
Right.
So they had children targeted for death with these explosives they had planted at these baseball fields throughout the southeast area, northeast Georgia, eastern Tennessee, and western North Carolina, including Murphy. They'd even set out explosives at the baseball fields there for the Little League baseball games there in Andrews and Robbinsville up into Cherokee Reservation up there, Cherokee, North Carolina. Franklin, North Carolina. But the Forsyth County Sheriff's Department, where Levi Frady lived there in Forsyth County, they're the ones that held the explosives that were retrieved before turning them over to the governor's office of North Carolina. And they're right around September of 1999, because I had been signed to turn those over to the quarry owners there in Nantahala region.
Was that with Governor Hunt?
Yes, ma'am. Governor Hunt, he approved it. He thought it was a good idea to turn those explosives over to those owners of those rock quarries to where they could dispose of them for us without just taking them out and wasting them for nothing. We even gave them the permits for free. Only thing they had to do was drill the holes and drop the pipe bombs down in there with a wire and set them off from the distance and blast out that more expensive rock that they wanted to get to back then, besides just Tennessee fieldstone. And so that's what we did with the explosives that was retrieved from the baseball fields in Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. Was we turned them over to those quarry owners to where they didn't have to buy, C4 and all that. When they were out, really helped me a lot. It definitely stopped the friction between the people and the FBI because nobody wanted the FBI up there. But of course, the terrorists wanted them up there because huge land grab. It takes 5 years for the radiation of a hydrogen bomb versus that of a nuclear warhead to dissipate. Warhead would take hundreds of years for the radiation to dissipate to safe level. With a hydrogen bomb, only take up to 5 years.
Right.
So they intended a lot of bloodshed there in Western North Carolina. And when these people up there, they found out what was really going on, they really supported me. So I figured the least I could do, since we were going to have to blow up all those explosives anyway, was just go ahead. Let's boost their economy in there, save them the money of having to buy the C4, and have them dispose of it for the state of North Carolina. The crate, the C4 that had not been piped up yet, that was turned over to the FBI. We had Eric Rudolph go over to the National Guard Armory and disarm the bombs and stuff that he had planted in there to blow up federal agents. Pretty much there right after, right around April, May of 1998. He had to go in there and disarm that. He just didn't do that on his own, by the way. He had to go in there and do that. He wound up cooperating with the feds to an extent, especially during the recovery of the pipe bombs from the baseball fields and the Boy Scout camp up there near Andrews. It was kind of funny when I went over there, met Louis Free, and I sat there and told him, I was like, man, you sure are brave sitting up here. He goes, why is that? I said, because there's explosives planted up here. Do what? So, of course, they found them.
Good.
But yeah, we pretty much turned the pipe bombs over to those quarry owners to where they could dispose of them and get the rock out they needed to get out, boost their economy, help boost the economy of the local communities. And the $1 million reward that was out for Eric, well, I mean, the state of North Carolina owes me way more than $1 million, that's for sure. And so I wasn't even interested in coming forward and trying to claim that $1 million. It could be, put into the community. I like the way that worked out. And so did a lot of people up there in Murphy. There's, a lot of people are surprised how many people up in Murphy actually watch my posts on Facebook. And some of them actually, I believe, listen to these podcasts because, I'm supposed to be dead. I'm not supposed to be alive, but I've knocked out 19 guys. One of them succumbed from his injuries. That was a double attack there in 2006. That was before John Andrew Ramsey and his 6 buddies decided they was going to try to come and get me and file me into this bar called The Place.
That was sometime. Was that sometime after John Bonet's death?
Oh yes, ma'am. This was because of the Epstein's arrest.
Ah,
And, I was wanting them to lock up John Ramsey, and they said they couldn't lock him up, and nor Ed Bentley. Well, I picked Jeffy because I wanted to eventually get to Ghislaine, because Ghislaine and Rudolph, kind of had their thing going with these little girls that she was chaperone during their water skiing lessons in 1996. I interviewed 3 of them in 1999.
was that? Excuse me for a minute. Was that the Waffle King, or what was the name of that? Where Epstein was with one of them girls, where Eric was
That was the Huddle
instructor.
House. That was
Huh?
the Huddle House in Blairsville, Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah, she was supposed to be taking her water skiing lessons that day. She was a figure skater. Her mother from up there close to Nantahala, her daddy from around Milton, Georgia. She would come down here and live with her dad, and I think it was joint custody. So she
Right.
took her figure skating lessons down here, and water skiing lessons during the summer up there. A beautiful lady, even today. She's still a beautiful woman. Bless her heart, she's fractured her arm so many times falling on the ice that she has problems with her arms now, being in her 40s.
Bless her heart.
Yeah. She was actually 14 there the day after the Centennial Park attack, when she was there in the Huddle House with Jeff Epstein.
Yeah.
And her parents had a fit when they found out she went over there. She didn't even like the guy. She described him like some 48, 49-year-old creep. And they,
But Rudolph ended up taking her over there to him or something, right? Or was it just Lane that delivered her to
well,
Epstein?
Eric got intimate with her in the spring of '96 during her water skiing lessons. He started teaching
Is
her
she the
water
one that
skiing
fell?
lessons when she was 12. So when she turned 14, since he was going to go out and commit these terrorist attacks and didn't intend to stop, he decided to have, rape her, and 3 other of his water skiing students. The youngest one was 9, and she was looked similar to John Bonet, just a little sweetheart when I interviewed her in 1999 there. And she had talked about going up Deep Creek and places like that there in Brazos City, and all. And I was like, yeah, I could see us having a friendly conversation if we was to run across each other, but I could not imagine somebody my age, or even close to my age, of wanting, want to do things to you that what you're saying he did. And she goes, yeah, I mean, that's why I figure, sitting here talking to you, I would probably engage in just a friendly conversation with you without even, fearing that you would even want to attempt to do something like that. She was really sweet. For 12-year-old girl, a little petite, blue eye blonde, like John Bonet would have been when she got older. Now Jim was a brunette.
Could I want you to make a statement about something, because so many people keep saying that one singer is JonBenet, but it's not. JonBenet's dead.
Oh, Katy Perry. No,
Yeah.
Katy Perry ain't John Bonet Ramsey.
Everybody needs to realize that and quit trying to spread that lie.
Well, John Ramsey likes to have his fun. He likes to kick back and watch everybody speculate and all of that.
It
about
takes it
who,
off of him. It takes the stuff. That's
yeah, it
what they
takes
want to
attention
do.
away,
Take it away
diverts,
from them.
yeah, diverts attention away from him. I mean, of course. I mean, you're talking to one of the most prolific serial child murderers in U.S. history.
And really, Bert was really asleep during the thing of John Bonet, which they had said, and so many people are saying that he is the one that's responsible.
No,
But
actually,
as you said, as you said,
actually,
go ahead.
yeah, actually, Bert was in bed. Because I think Bert knew that when John brought John Bonet home there after 9 o'clock, that she was already dead. And I believe the poor kid went up to his room and probably sat there and cried himself to sleep. Um, since his
And
daddy
that's
brought
why they
Christmas.
didn't have the video. So that's why they didn't have the video on Christmas morning. That normally they would do the Christmas morning videos with a tree and everything.
Yeah, all the you look at a lot of the pictures and stuff from the Christmas, and you'll look at John Bonet as much younger.
Uh huh.
You know, they tried so many shenanigans. They just never anticipated Ghislaine Maxwell ever getting busted, and so they released that picture of her and John Bonet not long after John Bonet's murder. Never thinking that Ghislaine would ever get arrested for anything. And now everybody's talking about it. A lot of people are wondering where was that. Well, it was Oktoberfest, 1996 in Helen, Georgia, and Eric Rudolph was actually on a date with Ghislaine when that picture was taken.
In Helen, Georgia, is a big place where they even have Chinese and different kind of
No,
like Chinese festivals, different lineages festivals over there in Helen.
no, it's really not Chinese. It's mostly Alpine
In
style.
Korean, I mean. I
Yeah,
think it's Korean or something like that, if I'm not
no,
mistaken.
German, like a German town.
Ah,
Alpine. Oktoberfest is a German celebration. Okay, Oktoberfest.
yeah, but I thought not too long ago they had something like that was with the Chinese or Japanese or Korean or something like that, if I wasn't mistaken.
I mean,
Uh,
they could have, but most of the stuff in Helen, Georgia, is like I said, Alpine. The buildings look like a Swedish German town.
wow.
They're built and designed. You got the river that goes through there, and you can take horse buggy rides and all these different places to sell beer and bars and you know a lot of shops and stuff to sell souvenirs and um, European German stuff. I would it doesn't surprise me that they let the Chinese come up there and have a little celebration there in Helen. But it looks like an alpine village. That's what it's built like.
The reason why I just started laughing when you said that, because I was thinking about the commercial and thinking about the guy with that big horn thing in, and then Ricola, that kind of.
Yeah. Well,
You
believe
got
it
me
or not,
laughing. I
in
just said that like
Oktoberfest, that's the way a lot of people will dress up. The guys will dress up like the Germans. They're like in the commercial with Ricola. They'll dress up like that. They'll have those big horns and all that because it's Oktoberfest. It's a German festival, and a lot of people of German descent in them. And I think the Ramseys have German descent, and they go over there, and the white women will dress up in the white dresses and blue dresses with the white bonnets and all that, like John Bonet was dressed up in. You get that every year during Oktoberfest in Helen. So Like, Helen's not far at all from Hiawassee, where the Ramseys had their home there on Lake Chattooga. And of course, they let Fleet White and I forgot that other doctor and his wife to use their home there on Lake Chattooga, but they spent most of their time with Big Ray Duncan, the founder of Duncan Oil, in his house. And Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeff Epstein stayed there with him and the Ramseys. So, it's like John Mark Carr, John Mark Carr, if he wanted to kill John Bonet, he wouldn't have to go all the way to Boulder, Colorado to do it. All he'd have to do was wait until the Ramseys were at home there in Buckhead, there in Atlanta. Go over there with the key that he had, open the door, and go in and do with John Bonet whatever John would allow him to do.
Yeah. Here's the picture right here, like you were describing.
Yeah, that's what she's dressed up for, is Oktoberfest there in Helen. And Ghislaine, you know that she's Jewish. Okay.
Yeah, you can tell that.
Epstein is Jewish. Ron Brill is Jewish. Okay.
Is he real
Bertie
or
Marcus
fake?
was Jewish. Arthur Blank is Jewish. Les Wexner is Jewish. Ken Langone was Jewish. Larry Fink is Jewish. Okay, all these people that were involved in the Atlanta child murders were all involved in the terrorism here, mostly in Atlanta, Georgia, in the 1990s. I mean,
Seriously, even Ramsey, even though he's got German, but he tries to claim maybe with a Jewish culture or something.
John Ramsey, he's I don't know. Only thing to explain John Ramsey is he thinks he's Satan himself.
Oh yeah, because he said he wanted to rule over.
What he told Beth, that evening over there after they killed those two black teenagers, and he showed up. And that threat that he made to her, that he was going to have us killed. They were going to let me live a little longer. They could understand why I came over there and got involved. They could understand that. So
see, that's what he
me for that. But he did not have a child that was going to live who tried to betray him. So.
Yeah, the reason why that he was threatening them. See, Charles had told Beth not to tell a soul about them going to rescue these two boys from the Bentley barn. Okay, but she ended up trusting John Andrew, right?
That's correct.
So then, because she trusted John Andrew, then John Andrew went and told John Ramsey. Mm-hmm. So when y'all got the two boys saying that, no, y'all need to leave. They're not just going to traffic you. They're going to sacrifice you, okay? But y'all got out, and then I leave it from there. You discussed that so many times, and the boys fled, and they got shot and killed. And then John come over and threatened all of y'all. Threatened you, threatened Beth, Matt Darrington, best friend, right?
Yeah, her friend Paula. Yeah.
And then even threatened that he was going to kill John Bonet on the anniversary of Joe Robinson's death. And he had even, prior things, you discussed this about him telling some of these other people, his compadres, that's in doing these crimes too, how he killed Joe Robinson and how he shot her in the face, and they were all laughing, thinking it was so funny.
Yeah, that was a few evenings before my 18th birthday.
Right.
There by Layton Graphics and Tip Top Poultry. Arrow Exterminators is located there today. They're on Wilco Drive and Gresham Road. They're right there at Interstate 75.
So he
Just-
said, and like you said, that Paula, is that her name, Paula?
I think it is. I could be wrong. I think it was Paula. I just cannot remember her name. I don't. Her family lived there in East Cobb, and her and
Right.
Beth went to grammar school together before Lucy and John divorced, which is 78 when they divorced.
Yes, and I remember you saying how she was such a lady, Beth was, that she didn't want to describe to you the things that her daddy John Ramsey did, but
No, ma'am.
she had Matt Darrington to describe and tell you the things that John had done to Beth and the younger daughter Melinda.
Yeah, I tell you what, when I met Beth, she was in the same dress that she was in. She must have had just got her picture that evening with John and Patsy. I don't know. But she was in the same dress that she was when she was taken in that picture with John and Patsy. And
If I could come up with that picture
just,
again.
just her ladylike, demeanor, the way she talked. And she was just this, beautiful young lady. I mean, the following evening when she
I'm
was
going to bring
dressed
it
up
up and
in her Delta Airlines outfit and all fixed up and all that, I didn't recognize her. She was all fixed up like a model. And I could see why Patsy tried to get her in the beauty pageants because she would have done very well in beauty pageants. Beth Ramsey would have.
is this the
And
dress you're speaking of right here?
no, ma'am, that's a different dress. There's a portrait of John, Patsy, and her in a bluish dress.
Okay.
And after those boys almost killed me up in Bryson City back in 1999, they swear up and down that was her and Matt Darrington that they saw. I was out there alone, wasn't supposed to be anybody with me or anything like that. And these boys flipped out, and they wound up, kind of becoming buddies with turned over my side after that happened. Because who it was out there, they just disappeared. There was no way someone could come out there and run and hide that fast. It was eminently impossible. So about a week later, on the news, they came out with a picture of John, Patsy, and Beth. And that one boy swore up and down that was her. I was driving up to Bryson City when he stopped me. He was also the boy that gave me the ride over to Sam Duncan Jr.'s house that day to fight him when I put, we called him Steve to separate him from his dad, but put Steve in the ICU for 5 days. I almost killed him.
Wow.
Broke his jaw. If I had hit him just a little bit harder, I'd have drove his jaw into his brain. He wouldn't have survived, and they would have executed me. His dad would have had me killed.
Oh, wow.
But that's how a lot of these guys that went up against him shoot over in Helen. Speaking of Helen, my picture was on the White County Sheriff's Department, their county jail, from 1997 until 2007 when they, built the new county jail and tore down the old jail. They didn't take that picture and move it over to the new jail. But it was by itself, away from their informants and deputies. And people first went in there, they thought I was an informant when they first saw it. There was this boy that, from Murphy, I think he got a DUI or something, and they took him in there and bucked him in. And he saw my picture on the wall and just right off the bat thought I was an informant with the White County Sheriff's Department. So he came back up to Murphy and went to the Waffle King and was telling my buddy Dennis and, Dennis Hegwood and Mike Green about my picture. So when I come pulling up, everybody was wondering, they knew I didn't work as an informant, So why was my picture on the wall at the county jail? So I had to explain it to them. About six weeks earlier, I had went over there to Helen one evening, and Eric Rudolph and the Cooks were over there.
Sorry about allergies are acting up.
And they had told these people that I was.
Are you there?
Yeah. That I was a informant for the FBI, so a lot of people were would want to fight.
This is the picture he might been talking about with
Yes,
Beth Ramsey. John
that's how Beth
Ramsey.
was dressed up when I met her, and going on the second week of will be going on the third week of October of 1991.
I know we're gonna see.
But I had one guy jump on me in that establishment, big old 6'3" cornbread fed redneck boy. And they wound up having to take him to the hospital. Then I went to the second establishment, and I had three of them try to jump on me over there, and wound up sending two of them to the hospital, one standing there looking stupid. So these guys, the three that tried to jump me, they had jumped on this husband of this newly wed couple almost a year earlier from Savannah, Georgia, that was up there on like their second honeymoon. And they said something to his wife, and he defended her honor, and they jumped on him and put him in the hospital overnight with stitches and stuff like that. They had jumped on some other people the past 5 or 6 years. Two of them were still. Two of them were already on probation. Had already served their. I think it was 18 days in jail, and was already on probation. And the one who started the altercation, he was still out on bond. But even his bond conditions, he wasn't even supposed to be in an establishment that served alcohol. So none of them were supposed to be in that place when they jumped me. So not only did two of them get put in the hospital, but all three wound up getting put back in jail. And my picture, well, of course, the deputy came up there to my office in Murphy, wanted my statement about what happened, so they could get them charged. So he wanted to take my picture, so anytime I was back over there, he could have deputies on standby in case I wound up having to hurt somebody else, and which worked out great. So that's what the folks at Waffle King found out that afternoon, was how my picture wound up there in the wall at the White County Jail for wasn't being informant. It was putting three guys in the hospital in two separate altercations. So I have sent quite a few people. There's times that I've ran instead of fight. I mean, there's sometimes I just had to engage. There was no running, didn't have a weapon, so I had to become the deadly weapon. So that's why I'm still alive, grace of God. It's humanly impossible for me to accomplish the things that I've accomplished if it wasn't, you know, working as an extension of our Creator and our Messiah, who the world calls Jesus Christ. So,
Hey, Charles.
be a liar if I said that I did all this on my own, because
Hey, Charles, was that a picture of the Beth right there
yes,
that you
ma'am.
was talking about?
Yes, ma'am. That's Beth Ramsey.
The Beth right there that you was talking about? I mean,
Yes,
that's the one you're talking about in the blue dress, right?
yes, ma'am. That's how she was
Okay,
dressed
good.
when I met her.
Good.
Her boyfriend, Matt Darrington, he wasn't a joke neither. I couldn't understand the logic of going back over there to that farm, following, late afternoon, early evening. But Beth was at that point that she was willing to give her life just to see what was in that barn. And they had tore down the old barn from the night before and had already reconstructed another barn in its place, just that fast. But she wanted to go back over there, her and him both. And to me, it was a suicide mission. And Fred and Roger, my brother Fred, were they're on the front porch of the barn. They had built this one out of plywood. And it still had a loft, but it also had a room below that loft, unlike the other one they tore down. Was much different, but close to the same size. They had done the same thing after they had killed Jennifer Olson out in South Carolina during her family's summer vacation in 1989. And I guess they were going to get rid of me then, because I was told by my dad that job that Fred wanted me to go do with, well, it was to take me down there to Richard Evidence's mother's house. And they were going to get rid of me down there. I heard that's what they were saying. And I managed to convince Richard's mother to let me use her phone to call my mother. And my mom got on the phone with Fred and told him he better have me back home the next day. And they had went out and this building out through the woods at a dead-end street. They had apparently murdered a teenage girl or something. They went out there and they took that building down and were out there the next morning, just before sunrise, putting it back up, and had me out there helping. When some of the neighbors came up there and was hollering stuff at them and all, and I was not keen to what was going on other than just going out and helping them throw up the building real quick. So there was something about that building that they tore it down and had another one reconstructed before the police could get there. And so that was the same situation there in October of '91 with that barn. Once I rescued those two black teenagers from it, they took it down and had another one built in its place. I guess in case I did get to the law, they could come out and they wouldn't find any type of trace evidence that they could use. That's why we covered the discussions of the newspaper articles for the large amount of number of barns, according to, attorney Alice Summerer. She's a member of the Bentley family, and that's whose name that ranch is in, today. But they want to say that all these barns is, burnt and reburnt multiple times before being finally burnt down, or the other ones burnt down, including the concrete barn that you described to me and refreshed my memory on, and the two concrete horse stables that used to be there close to it. Those barns just didn't burn down because they were built out of concrete. But they had to be destroyed from the 1978, court settlement between George Bentley Sr., or Ed Bentley Sr., and my dad. And so Beth found out that the $450,000
It's amazing.
supposed to receive from that settlement, with 6 acres of land in the house, was the amount of money they was willing to pay my brother Fred and Roger Nance to get rid of me. They were going to give them the $450,000. So of course, after they murdered those 2 boys.
I want people to see right here. I want people to see this right here.
Yeah, that's intersection of trying to think of that, Barnes Mill Road
Whitley
and
Lake.
Lee Lake Road.
Whitley Lake.
Mm-hmm. And Barnes Mill Road there, Marietta. Now that's on the back side from the 120 loop there. That's how you go down to get to that church that they built a fence around. It's a black community church. That's why I used to call George Bentley the Klansman with a black church on his ranch, because that's a black community church, and that's the same farm where the majority of the victims of the Atlanta child murders and those 2 boys that they murdered in October 1991. That's where they held all those victims, and all the child sex trafficking and victims were always held there on that ranch. So when I started doing my post on social media,
I wonder how many times. That the barns had burnt.
well, one barn that they reconstructed in place of the other one, the loft in it burned like 5 or 6 times before it burned down, and they built another one in its place. And that was right there at the on-ramp from Roswell Road on the 120 loop there, North Marietta Parkway today. That's the Whitewater exit people take to go to that water park, just also owned by Six Flags. So it's in close proximity there, and Tip Top Poultry and Leighton Graphics, and that is pretty much what we can call, a CIA MOSSAD operation of child sex trafficking is Bentley Farms. It's known as Blackjack Stables, but they used to raise cattle more than they did horses, but they used to raise both. Now it's just pretty much horses. The cattle became pets and I guess died off, and they just stuck to raising horses and boarding horses for other people as a cover for their human trafficking operations. So if you ever want to know who in the political arena has involvement with this or potential involvement in this. So you just look at your pro-Israeli group there in the Republican Party, and you pretty much have them pretty much identified because I'm not saying all of them. I'm going to assume there are some of them that do not understand the magnitude of the crimes committed by Netanyahu and of course this bunch out here in the United States. But from my perspective, from what I've experienced, they said they would never send anybody else to try to abduct me. They would just shoot me, next go around. Because they gave up that idea a long time ago after losing one of two in an attempted abduction there in 2006. And they always wanted to permanently silence me. Reason why they did that raid in 2013 there at my house and forced me that injection. It was Ron Burrell who was actually the one who gave me the injection because of his ties with the pharmaceutical industry. So any of this can be researched besides just going by what I have to say. These people, their profiles, they're out there. Bernie Marcus, he passed away, I think around 5 months ago at 94 years of age. But these guys, they were all IDF during the 6-Day War of 1967. And since they were so accomplished in completing their mission, President Lyndon B. Johnson and President Richard Nixon gave these guys a free pass to the United States. So apparently when they came, they partnered with George Bentley Sr. and Ed Bentley Jr., George Edward Bentley Jr., in human trafficking. They definitely were involved with them in domestic terrorism, the bombing of the Alfred P. Murray Federal Building, the June 19th, 1997 attempted truck bombing of the Home Depot corporate headquarters. I mean, all of that. John Ramsey was vice president of Lockheed Martin. He was pretty much hijacking hydrogen bomb there from the military base.
Yes.
That wound up at Cook Ridge.
Yes.
So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Here.
Could I go ahead and finish reading what you had put? Because I think all that's important too, in your answer, because it goes on to describe more on these bad people,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So when the founding executives of the Home Depot orchestrated the truck bombing of the corporate headquarters on June 19th, 1997, was because of multiple advantages, and primarily because they targeted some of their employees' children for adoption and human trafficking until I screwed up that bomb attack. Their operations are more than nationwide, so connecting Stockbridge is the easiest because your curiosity are verified because they're very much are part of this mess. Not everyone supported their race wars. They sought to launch in Atlanta, so the FBI got crafty and pinned the murders on Wayne Williams because all it took was the arrest of one Caucasian adult male, and hell would have busted loose in Atlanta during the Atlanta child murders. So after the arrest of Wayne Williams, the murders continued, but the majority were brought from out of state, and Beth Ramsey learned about it. And since the Bentleys had a $450,000 contract with your brother Fred ICU. She found out through snooping on her dad's phone conversations and meetings, and took and look at what they did to her. Since Wayne did that, his brother Robert, Wayne Beach, that his brother Robert and my brother Fred were involved in this mess, because they had killed Wayne. Okay. They
Mm-hmm.
decided to silence him permanently because they tried to have Charles killed half a dozen times in 2006 because they arrested Jeffrey Epstein. Apparently, Wayne found out or was about to find out, so they reacted after he got sick from the chili and proceeded to poison him to make it appear that he died from food poisoning, and admitted to murdering him during that invasion at Charles's home. Since Bill Hudson and Neil Warren were head deep and involved in it, there remains on my and that criminal element in Atlanta who would kill them in the event they murdered me or any immediate family, because their lies started backfiring on them when his dad was dying in the ICU in July 2001. After they failed to kill Charles the first time that month, it backfired. They unwittingly lied to and hired some guys to stalk Charles, and they discovered Charles saved their lives in the morning of March the 11th, 97, when he stopped the 14 attacks along the Buford Highway corridor in Doraville, including the convenience store they were remodeling at. They were told that Charles was a thug who stole about $3,500 in stuff from a marijuana dealer and turned him into the police for selling marijuana, and needed their help to follow Charles to the stolen goods so they could retrieve the items to get the bail money to bond their buddy out of jail. Once Charles had confronted them in the lobby at the hospital, they discovered what it was truly about, and they were ticked off. It's about child trafficking and child murders and stuff. Well, Fred almost got himself, well, Barney Marcus, Ron Brill, Roger Nance, and Jeff Carrier almost got killed by the Butch and Buckhead over this mess. That's why he has doubled. That's why Charles has double the protection in Atlanta. Is because of Buckhead Bunch, and Atlanta PD watches Charles's back every time I'm in the area. Every time he's in the area. So since Nance stole his Charles's mother's house and sued Charles wrongfully for libel, their time is getting shorter by the day, because Charles was told in the event that would happen that he would have to do anything but confirm these facts, and they'll deal with these sickos. Okay, so that's all of that on that post. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same thing there. See, even people kind of raise their eyebrows when they find out that I'm related to Billy Wayne Davis and Robert Beach, because everybody knows that my dad's half cousin was a hitman for the Dixie Mob. A lot of people know that Robert Beach is an assassin for the deep state. He's pretty much in charge. Right on up there, really just about much in charge of things as Jeff Epstein was, but more so in the child sex trafficking than what Jeff Epstein was. Jeffy, he was the blackmailer. He was in charge of getting people blackmailed. Robert, he was always in charge of getting the children and disposing of them.
So
So
he lives in Florida, y'all. There's Robert Beach.
Veach, yeah,
Yeah, he lives in Florida.
but yeah, they admitted during that raid in 2013, toward the end of it, since that medication was supposed to make me forget everything. I just told Robert, I said, since I'm going to forget this anything, just ease my curiosity. Did you murder your brother Wayne? And he admitted it. He said it wasn't with ethylene glycol, so I know it was with ethylene glycol. He was standing there talking with Fred Bentley Jr. When I asked him the question about it. So it's another reason why I brought that up on that post on Facebook. that's who also welcomed himself into my house that afternoon. So Grady Moore was a prosecutor for the Cobb County District Attorney's Office. That's my cousin Wayne right there. That's who they poisoned in 2007. What had happened with Wayne, he got hold of some Castleberry brand chili and got food poisoning. So before he could recover from it, Fred and Roger, my brother Fred and Robert, his brother, went in and poisoned him. So it wasn't the food poison from the Castleberry chili that killed him, but according to Fred and Robert, after his burial and session there at his home, Robert sat there and described, how he got sick from the chili and thought he was past it, and he came back down with another bout of food poisoning. They brought him chicken soup, Jello, sodas, crackers, and he just got to where he couldn't keep anything down. Just same thing that we get out of the dialogue with Sergeant Glenn Turner and Randy Thompson when they were poisoned by ethylene glycol. I sat there and listened to my cousin describe how his brother Wayne died. So, of course, Ron Brill was standing outside, which, of course, he had his mustache. You don't have that in his picture right there with a mustache, because if you did, you would probably think he's the same guy that was up there at the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, where all the students went to and, took, refuge at his house. And he was so compassionate about the pain and suffering of poor children and all that. It was Ron Brill,
Okay, I think to show that picture again.
Yeah, people don't think false flag operations cost human lives. They do. These people, they kill people all the time, children all the time. It's nothing to them. And that's a picture of him and his wife. I don't know what year that was. But when you take his younger picture, of his younger years, he was more chubby and really looked like a goofball. At least he looked like a goofball when I saw him down there at the Chattahoochee River that night. Just looked like a creepy goofball, but with a mustache. And I guess when you get to making money, becoming a billionaire, you can make your appearance change. But that's Arthur Blank's right-hand guy, owner of the Atlanta Falcons football team and Atlanta United soccer team. Ron Brill is Arthur Blank's right-hand man, and they're all MOSSAD. They're all Jewish. So what you're flipping through is both.
I'm trying to get to Arthur.
Yeah, there's Arthur.
I don't know who this. Who is this right here?
I'm trying to remember their names. They're from Marietta, Gridiron. I've had some negative run-ins with them before, and they attacked me again on one of John Benet Ramsey's groups and stuff like that. I cannot think of their names, but
there's a new guy that you had brought up, and I haven't showed it to the people yet. We hadn't touched that base too much on the Steve Gould.
Yeah, Steve.
So now that's a new picture I got today, so I'm trying to get to his picture right quick. Give me a second, please. I got it in alphabetical order, you know. Got to go way back. Okay, so let me go and present this right quick. It's one of them that kept trying to eradicate you, right?
Well, yeah, since he was one of the ones helping my brother Fred and others chase me around down there in Lower Alabama from 1994 to 1996 before I went to Murphy, North Carolina. He was also in the Papa Doe's that day at Windy Hill Road in Marietta when I knocked out Mark Payne and put him in the ICU for 4 days at Cobb General. This was after the arrest of Epstein in 2006. And then Jeff was in charge of trying to dispose of me while my dad was dying in ICU at Piedmont Hospital in July 2001.
Hard to hear that.
Yeah. I never knew him or even who he was at the time, but he was who they were supposed to pick up before I escaped Fred's automobile on July the 7th of 2001. When Craig Menier and Roger Nance and him had me abducted, they were going to make it permanent when they pulled over there on north side and picked up Jeff Carrier. I knew if I didn't get out of my brother's automobile then, I wasn't going to get out of it, and I wasn't going to live past that evening. So when I walked in, saw him standing at the bar, I looked at him. I'm like, well, good grief! Look at what the dogs dragged in. He just looked at. Steve Gold was standing there to his right, and he told him and looked over at this other guy, Mark Payne, was like 6'3". Told them to take me out and get rid of me. So, of course, Mark comes walking up to him with a big old smirk on his face like he was about to do something funny and grab me. So I knocked him out. Knocked him up against the rail and he fell down. And I looked over. I was about to go over and crack Gold up beside the head. He's standing there with his snub nose tucked up beside his by his side there to where I couldn't kick it or knock it out of his hand, So I just kind of laughed at him. And so you got you the equalizer, huh?
I really believe that they should.
They're all jumping up thinking there's about to be a shooting, and
they need to make a movie out of your life. You know what I'm saying? The different chases and everything. You know what I'm saying? What kind of reminds me of Dukes of Hazzard a little bit with your little maneuvers and stuff. And then it's like almost like Wile E. Coyote. You're up there, and then they're waiting for you and everything. Then you show up behind a van that's supposed to be waiting for you to pass, so that to get you to wreck into it, or something like that.
You
wind up right behind it. They're like, "Hey, what you guys doing? What you guys doing there?"
Well, it's like when Judge McLaughlin totaled out his 1970 Buick Centurion down there, community of Paul, Alabama, there at Evergreen. I went and told the two boys that were driving the two delivery trucks that he had totaled out his car, and they were who I was supposed to run my vehicle into,
Yeah.
And anyway,
he's lucky to survive, Judge McLaughlin is, because if his head would have hit that mailbox, it would have popped like a watermelon.
Like a cantaloupe is what he said.
Like a cantaloupe.
Yeah,
that phrase that he said.
Ma'am?
Say that phrase that McLaughlin said.
It would have cracked like a cantaloupe. Yeah, that's what he
But it's
said.
kind of weird. You had a picture of McLaughlin when he was younger before he was ever a judge. And, there's some people that wanted him, and it's the same dang picture looking like a Judge McLaughlin way back then. And so to me, that's proof that McLaughlin did these other things way back then as well.
Well, he's one of the I-70 serial killers. When you put that picture of Frank Floyd, and 28-year-old Mary Carter of Cincinnati, Ohio,
Let me look at it real quick.
Franklin Delano Floyd, okay, serial killer. That's who I was introduced to as Bill Ramsey. The evening I met John Ramsey. After him and Judge McLaughlin arrived over there by Tip Top Poultry, McLaughlin had just started his job with the magistrate court of Cobb County in pretrial detention or pretrial services. Work with getting people out of jail on pretrial services. So that's how he initially started out with the magistrate court there in November 1983. And that was...
It's kind of weird.
That was almost 3 years after I became a witness against him in a homicide he committed back when I was in the 8th grade at Mabry Middle School. And that was on Ebenezer Road. We were neighbors with the sheriff of Cobb County, Bill Hudson, and his sister, Betty Elrod. And I was on the back of the school bus one day coming home, and I saw these two cars racing around the curve. One was a Buick. Another one was turned out to be a 70 Chevelle green with a black top on it. And he ran into Betty Elrod's brick mailbox. Well, in Cobb County, shoot, I had cousins used to race all the time, before they extended Interstate 75 from Allgood Road up to Redbud Road up in Dalton, Georgia. People used to go to the strip of the Interstate 75 between what is now North Marietta Parkway, 120 Loop, and they would drag race on that stretch of interstate because it was closed off. It didn't go any further than Allgood Road. So people would race around Marietta all the time. So I thought it was, two guys racing. No, he was going to the authorities on the Bentleys. And McLaughlin, who was still in college and living in Knoxville, Tennessee at the time, he was his executioner. So I guess he shot the boy.
Yeah,
He lost control, and he just went right off the road, right into, Betty Elrod's brick mailbox. I'm sitting there on the back of school bus and saw it. And so I went running up to the front of the bus, since our driveway was like, 250 feet past Knight Road, where it turned on to make its little circle back around to Blackwell Road to Ebenezer, back to my driveway, which was its last stop. I got the bus driver to let me there on the corner of Knight Road. And
you said that it's still got that case, that file of McLaughlin reckon into the mailbox, right?
I mean, the police knows it was McLaughlin, and I was, and I was pressured by Betty Elrod to leave it alone. And after he got that boy out of that automobile and took off the way that he did, he took him out and killed him. So it was for, Bill Hudson and the Bentleys. he carried through that execution. And that's apparently what reserved his spot there in the Cobb Magistrate Court, was doing dirty work for the deep state and for the Bentleys, you know.
Right. Now it makes me wonder, how many times, and whenever I see that a car wrecks and was going at a high rate of speed, can't help but wonder how many of them were in chases from these horrible people.
Well, you know, that's why you always have to question these accidents, so-called accidents, with delivery trucks and box trucks and garbage trucks and all of that.
Yes.
You know, because that's been a normal way to get rid of people, is chase them in the wet weather until they collide with a delivery truck, like what happened with Beth Ramsey and Matt Darrington. They were being chased. There's no way in the world Matt would drive in the rain with his girlfriend with him. Now, he would drive in the rain by himself. Yeah, no problem. But as long as he had her with him, nope. The moment they hit rain, he would pull over either to a restaurant or a motel, and they'd go in and eat. And they would not leave until the roads were dried from the rain, because they did not want to go out, be run into any bakery trucks or delivery trucks or anything like that, because that was the number one way of disposing of people, was make it appear that they died in an automobile accident.
Yeah, but that's what it says that happens.
They just driving at a high rate of speed, during rainy conditions, and this big truck came over and collided with them. Well, that was deliberate, because they were being chased. When John Ramsey sat there in his interview 2023, I believe it was, no, 2024, January 2024. He sat there once he got the phone call that there was nothing else that they could do to save his daughter Beth's life. That was the call he was waiting on. Because he sat there in that interview and said, he goes, well, I had to get Beth back, and so I had to focus on John Bonet. So he admits it right there. If you wouldn't know it, you wouldn't know it's an admission. But he admits right there during that interview, in order
live
to
TV?
get Beth back, he had to focus on John Bonet. That's right, to get Beth back, for trying to get him and the others busted.
Right. But remember what he told them that about
her soul.
There you go.
Unity. That was his exact word. So, yeah, I don't have any way to debunk him as being Satan himself. I mean, and I cannot say that these guys are not part of his legion, because everything that these people do are inhumane. Whether it's torturing, raping, and murdering children for their what they call adrenochrome,
and also organs.
Yeah, organs and what have you. I mean, you can't consider them human, because a real human being wouldn't do that to another human being. But they do. And it's, they use it as blackmail. They use it any way they can to gain more support of people to become just like them. And they don't discriminate. I believe that it wasn't just Caucasian and Jewish guys down there at the Chattahoochee River that night. I believe there were some people from the black community down there just as well. This wasn't just some thing set up by the, you know, Ku Klux Klan and the MOSSAD. No, I believe there was, you know, possibly some people from the Hispanic community they're involved in that as well. Because when you look at it, the way the drugs are being trafficked through the cartels, and the way humans have been being trafficked by the cartels, Operation Long Wine, the arrest of the kingpin of that was Antonio Ramirez Cardenas of Atlanta, Georgia. And of course, between him and Jeff Epstein, doing their snitching, resulted in an Operation Child Safe Neighborhood being launched from 2007 to 2009. And so all they did was turn over members of the Mexican cartels, okay, to protect their butts is what they did.
Okay, I got a question for you. When I told you about one of the traffickers' names, and because that state trooper, you know, you said that somebody had mentioned that name before. Greenhall?
Greenhall, yes, I'd heard that name before from this lady up in Andrews, North Carolina, about the Greenhalls.
Yeah. So they
the
had to have
Greenhalls
affiliations with this group too.
with the Bentleys. Yep.
Right. So I guess that's how such and such in my family had come across, who.
Well, yeah, because when you think about it, I'm native of Cobb County, Georgia, but I got family spread out all the way up to, Cherokee, North Carolina, and then some. I, even got cousins in Raleigh. My Aunt Frances and Uncle Paul, her husband, he was from Evergreen, Alabama. So him and her used to live in Evergreen, Alabama, way before I ever moved down there. These families, they got family members spread out. Most of them pretty good people. You just got that, bad apple in the bunch. I think all families have. I don't think there's a family in this country that's immune to them, or I don't think in the world that's immune to having a creep or two in their family. I don't think none of us are immune to that. I think
Yeah,
we all.
but you would think that people like police officers and he was a state trooper, the one that told me about his daddy, having all the child pornos of me, whatever, and I said that I was in the majority of the, his daddy had over 300, I was in the majority of them, and that just knocked me off my feet, with that Greenhall guy telling me that, and it's pretty, yeah. I really lost. I couldn't feel my legs up underneath me. I went backwards. It literally knocked me off my feet. And I asked him how old I was, and he said you were 4 to 11. So in between the ages of 4 to 11, and that fits in because when I was 11, I had to go live with my mom in Florida. So he had the ages down pat on everything. So now it helps me tie in too on, to like the female mutilation. Like I told you that my daddy did to me when I was 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now it makes me think instead of like my sister said that daddy had a book that she thinks that's how he knew about it from a book when it came from Germany. Now I'm starting to reason it's because of that group knew about, that certain thing, and they got off on, that that part scaring a person, and that's why he cut me and ate that piece. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I hate to think about that, but it just puts two and two together, right? Right?
Right. Well, that's like the fighters when you go in and you research about Mary and Patty and you know and what they were doing, and you hear about they say sacrifice of the goats, right?
Uh,
Well, the sacrifice of the goats is just like I mentioned earlier. That was to teach the children how to become lethal weapons against the black children in their race war. That was no ritual. It was just to train them. If your child can cut up a billy goat and cut out his testicles and all of that,
Hi,
uh,
Carly.
it could make them combative, to black children, and that was the
Right.
purpose of the what they call the goat sacrifices. And
That makes me sense. I mean, after Daddy died, stepmom got that house and everything, and she got two goats, and our dog has never messed with them goats ever before. And it's just ironic that 2 days of each other, she said that the dog attacked. And I doubted that because that dog's never attacked. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
So now, with knowing that she had demonic meat, satanic meats right there on her property, right?
hmm
So now that all just fits in. No, that dog did not do it. They did it for this sacrificial type of whatever. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Well, it's like
I mean, it's fitting in. It's all the pieces just fitting in even more so. It's disgusting.
mm, well, that's like last year. Lisa was saying, "Well, it's the Jews." Well, no, it's not the Jews. I mean, it's a sector of Judaism, but it's not the Jewish people themselves, because you got people, you know. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a huge fan of John Ossoff, Congressman of Atlanta, because of his, stance with the woke and LGBTQ um, indoctrination. Um, but last year, he released a report on the amount of missing children from Child Protective Services. Same thing that, you know, Rick White, is Richard Jewell, and Nancy
Right?
Schaefer and I were uncovering there from 2006 and 2007. Um, you know, that one of their number one sources of children are foster and adopted parents. Um,
It's like
they
there's two
pick
black.
out they pick out and recruit into the foster parent program. Now, I'm not saying all foster parents are recruited by them. We know there's some good, wonderful foster parents out there that'll take these children in and give them the best environment they can.
Oh man.
Uh, but we know that, how the Child Protective Services system has been totally abused. And it's
Yes.
still,
And the two boys that you and Beth Ramsey and Matt Darrington and that other girl helped escape out of that Bentley Farms, they were with the foster care system.
yes,
And the
both of
foster,
them were in
yeah,
foster
exactly.
care.
Both of them were.
Yep.
You see what Carlene had to say in the comments right there?
Mhm.
Years ago, a friend's horse went missing. Then the next it was back. He found the horse with the female parts was removed.
Wow.
Wow. Some sick, twisted people in the world.
Yeah, I mean, um, it's like this case down in Evergreen, Alabama. I think it was from 1991 or 1992. It was before I moved there. There was this retired school teacher, Mrs. Haskey. She had taught a lot of people there in Connecticut County. Everyone loved her. And so there's a community there called Travis Bridge. It's a bridge there that Highway 83 that goes over to McKenzie, Alabama after 84 splits off and goes down into Andalusia. Remember correctly, it might be the other way around, but anyway, it's that, one highway turns off, another one goes down to Andalusia, and the other one goes to McKenzie, Alabama, where Hank Williams Sr.'s from. And
Wow.
but there's a guy down there related to Jeff and John Brock down there, Lance Brock. He supposedly a key player in the drug trade down there, this, that, and the other, and so on and so forth. So he was building a fancy 2-story house down there. People were going over there, and they had built a new bridge and left the old bridge, I think, standing. And people would go over there to where the old highway had been cut off and new highway cut through, a new bridge. And they'd go over there, hang out, drink beer and party and stuff like that. And then Mrs. Haskey started noticing some activities that was going out in the woods behind her home. And went back there in the daytime and found out that there had been some animal sacrifices back there. So she contacted the sheriff's department, and there was these 2 boys, last name Hall, that had moved to Connecticut County, wasn't from there. And what it was them and Ray Henry, Lane Pinion, and some others down there got into this occult-like activities down there. And so Ray wasn't there when she was murdered, but he dropped the 2 boys and Lane Pinion off. She had like a 67 Ford pickup truck that Ray wanted real bad. I think he was working a deal with her on. So I don't think he wanted her dead. He didn't know what they were going to go do. Maybe scared, but he didn't know they were going to kill her. But they wound up killing the poor lady. And people said they rubbed, smeared her blood on the walls of satanic symbols. Others say that they spray painted the satanic symbols on the walls after they murdered her.
Wow.
But the 2 boys Hall brothers, they wound up getting convicted for homicide, sentenced, I think, life in prison. Nothing happened to Lane Pinion. And I could almost write a book on this stuff down there in Alabama. It'd be a whole lot more comfortable to write about than this other stuff they experienced in investigations over terrorism.
Right. I want to tell we are really in a spiritual battle. We need to make sure that we do put the full armor of God on,
Mm-hmm. But anyway, Lane wound up, according to Ray, Lane wound up having something with his 11-year-old foster sister.
Oh boy.
And him and Ray were like 25 years old, 24, 25 years old.
Guessing.
Well, she contemplated suicide. I had wrote her a suicide note. Well, Ray came over there and talked to her out of committing suicide, so he got intimate with her.
Wow.
So according to Ray, Lane found out that he got involved with his 11-year-old half sister, foster sister / girlfriend. And he killed her and made it look like suicide. Ray testified against him before the grand jury there in Andalusia, Alabama, Covington County, south of Evergreen in Connecticut County. But they did not indict Lane. But however, in 1993, Ray winds up hooking up with Lane's girlfriend's 13-year-old daughter.
Oh, God.
Rhonda Walker of Andalusia, Alabama. Well, come to find out, the reason why my brother and all them were chasing me around down there in lower Alabama.
LA.
Yeah, LA. Yeah, don't. Yeah. Over there by downtown Brooklyn too. The huge famous town of Brooklyn. Don't blink your eyes, you might miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, when I turned down the $4.5 million hush money for Beth Ramsey murder in 1992, I told them where they could stuff that $4.5 million hush money.
They tried to silence you and because of what Beth had told you and divulged to you, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I told them I was going to leave Marietta. I was going to move to another part of the country. And I wasn't going to say anything to anyone. I was going to settle down and get married and have a family and do my thing. I tried to run from it.
Is that when you ended up in Evergreen and then they're down there too?
Yeah, wound up moving the next county north of where another operation was operating at there in Andalusia with 13-year-old Rhonda Walker.
Oh.
So in May of 97, I go down to Evergreen. About my daughter. So I popped in on Ray and had a conversation with Ray. And that's how I found out that John Mark Carr was, in fact, in the home where John Bonet was at when she was murdered. Believe it or not, was from.
Yeah,
Ray.
you found out different people that had told you, and even that one HB, without me saying a name, was saying that he got mad about her being murdered, but he could understand about the messing with her sexually, but he didn't really want her dead. HB said that, right?
Yeah. So that's how I found out which bar he hung out at in Sandy Springs. And that's how I was able to locate him. Was because of what Ray had told me. Now, you wouldn't think all the way down there in lower Alabama and Evergreen in Alabama that any of this would be connected. But when you look at the amount of them in Cobb County that are prosecutors, judges, law enforcement, why would you expect it to be different in a lot of these other counties and states? Tommy Chapman was president of the District Attorneys Association of the state of Alabama.
Yeah, I remember him really good, and I didn't know he was all that bad of a person, really. until you
Yeah.
told me, you know.
Yeah. And it was over the Monroe Judicial Circuit, which was Monroe County over there in Monroeville, where what's her name was from, who wrote the book To Kill a Mockingbird. That's where she's from. But anyway,
Okay, what was his name again? I forgot. What did you just mention? The guy? I'm looking
who
for
wrote
his
the book? It was the woman who wrote the book.
No, that guy you just said, that
Tommy
Alabama guy.
Chapman.
Okay, Tommy Chapman. That's who I'm looking
Yeah.
up. Right.
Well, he's from Evergreen, Alabama. Cousins with my ex-mother-in-law. And that was
Really?
allowing. He was complicit with what my mother-in-law's youngest brother, Andy Etheridge, was doing, because they were like best friends, favorite cousins, Andy Etheridge and, Tommy Chapman. He was next
Here he is
in
right
line,
here.
governor of Alabama after Bentley until I sunk his ship in 2011.
Yeah, because he was messing with kids himself, right?
According to the rumors, he was. Now, we know that whenever he was prosecuting his cousin, Andy Etheridge, and he wound up with a 3-count first-degree sodomy conviction there in 2005, with a 32-year prison sentence attached, that during the trial, Andy was sitting over there in his wheelchair with his attorney and watching Tommy present his evidence and stuff to the jury. And it occurred to Andy that he was about to get convicted. His cousin was about to convict his butt.
Wow.
When it finally occurred to him that he was about to get convicted, he busted out in the courtroom. "'Cause why you prosecuting me when you're guilty of doing the same thing yourself?" And everybody in the courtroom was like, huh? Well, he was in line to become governor of Alabama one day.
Yeah, I remember that because he was really high in the name, like he was, everybody trusted him in Alabama. I remember all that,
Well, his son Chip went to that private school over there, Sparta Academy, and he was the drug dealer.
Oh, boy.
He was the one all the students could get their cocaine from, Chip Chapman.
Wow.
And, people ask me, "Charles, you need to write a book." Well, I can write a series of books on this stuff. I mean, you
You
can't
can write a
cover
whole
all
library. What you talking about, dude? Born a series, you can
Yeah,
have a whole
I mean,
library on everything that's happened.
but just the stuff that they pulled off down there, the Brocks down there in Evergreen, John Brock, his nephew was Jeff Brock. He was district court judge there in Connecticut County there for a long time, and he sure didn't like what I did up in Murphy, North Carolina, according to hear him talk. But if these people aren't involved, they're complicit.
Yeah.
They allow it to happen.
Yeah, and all these people that tell us to be quiet about this, and something that, like one guy came in here one time and said, "Well, you need to be quiet about this. Children don't get molested, they don't get raped, they don't get sex trafficked. You need to be quiet about that." And I'm like, dude, you really just don't know. Are you that ignorant?
Well, there for a while, I had people tell me, come up and tell me, "Oh, I heard you told so and so and such and such." I'm like, "Well, and why?" "Well, if you know what's best, best for you, better keep your mouth shut." I'd be like, "Why? Is someone going to whoop my ass or something?" Well, believe me, there was plenty of them that tried.
Oh yeah. I remember all these different interviews I had with you. You told us quite bit of it.
Mhm. You know, I've been fighting these people most of my life. You know, the Bentleys had their $5, $20 reward, $5 for any boy that would start a fight with me, and an additional 20 if he beat my butt. And only a few of them collected the $20. Um,
I'm
a lot
sorry.
of them collected the 5, but there was just a few who collected the 20, and they were older.
I think we ought to leave it on a funny note right now, and maybe another time we won't know what the next thing that you'll want to talk about, since it's almost going on 3 hours. But I wanted to leave him on that note. That time when John Ramsey himself got got, got by that girl with ice cream cone, you know.
Well, he gets upset every time I see him. I instead of saying Mr. Ramsey, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's that guy that got his butt whooped by that 11-year-old blonde that time. And he gets mad every time, but he can't say anything about it because he's the one who told me about it.
Yeah, he was, and he was kind of laughing about it. And he said, "Well, I guess I could whip your butt with my hand behind my back." But what he did, he got to convince that little girl, for y'all that don't know, he bought her an ice cream, convinced her to get into the car and drive around because it was really hot or something like that. He took her
No,
off
it was
huh?
really hot outside, and it was one of those outside ice cream parlors where you walked up to the window and got your ice cream. There was no place to
Yeah,
come inside, sit and eat. And so she had just got her ice cream when he walked up and ordered his. So he offered her a ride in a station wagon because it's what John always loved to drive, was station wagons. Back then, I guess he's gone to SUVs, but he always loved the station wagons. He was driving a station wagon when I met him. He was driving a station wagon over there in '98 when he tried to have me abducted over there on Buford Highway in Chamblee, or really South Doraville. But um, you know, those boys didn't know what to do when I called them pedophiles. But when they told me
yeah,
that him and Monty was parked over there in his, gray Buick LeSabre station wagon, and Monty was parked next to him in his black Volvo, but they couldn't believe their eyes when they saw me charging toward their automobiles, and the guys who were supposed to be snatching me kind of running up behind me like they were coming after them with me. It was the funniest thing I ever pulled on John Ramsey was that.
yeah. And get back to that story. He took her
But
off, and
yeah, so he convinced her he'd give her a ride around town where she could enjoy her ice cream without it melting as fast. And the girl took him up on his offer, got in his passenger seat of his car, and instead of driving into town, he drove out a country road down to a base of this mountain out in a secluded location. And he got her out and forced her into the back seat of his automobile, and proceeded trying to, rape her. Well, he failed to remove her tennis sneakers, so she was able to get her footing on the seat and the floorboard, and hit him in the family jewels with one of her knees, followed with some elbows to the ribs, and what I tell people, Rocky Balboa, hit him a few times in the face and went running off and screaming for help. Well, this couple lived close by, heard her, and was able to come to her aid. But I asked him, I was like, well, Mr. Ramsey, how old are you? And he wanted to sit there and tell me he was 36, but he had just turned 40.
wow.
My birthdays are in the same month, but 5 days apart. And I was like, Mr. Ramsey, so what were you actually trying to rape? Well, yeah, that's what I was trying to do was, I had just got her shorts and her started getting her panties down when she got her footing on the seat and leave me in the growing. And
You go, girl. Woohoo!
help me. I said, well, what makes you think the tennis shoes had anything to do with it? Maybe she'd have beat you up even with them on. Oh, no. You take their tennis shoes off and they're vulnerable then at that age, you know. She wasn't quite 12, but the girl was almost 12. But I
And
still say, if she's 11, she's 11. I was still 17 when I heard the story from him. Just because of
usually,
3 evenings
usually,
before my 18th birthday, I was still 17.
yeah, usually they rape and then they kill them instead of letting them go. You know.
Yeah. So I said, well, you know what we call that here? And he goes, what's that? I said, we call that a good old fashioned ass whooping. So what you're saying is you got your ass whooped by this 11-year-old girl.
So I believe that would be.
Well, I didn't. I wasn't considering it like that. I said, well, that's what we call it down here. You know, if you jump on somebody and they land the more punches and all of that, and you know, put you down, well, that's what we call an ass whooping. So what you're saying is you got your ass whooped by an 11-year-old blonde.
And she got away.
I said, heck, I'm not even 18 years old yet. That means I could whoop your ass from right here all the way over to Tip Top Poetry with one hand tied behind my back.
And yes, we are talking about John Ramsey here, y'all.
Yeah. And I asked my buddy, I said, do you think I could beat him up when I'm 17 with one hand tied behind my back? And he goes, yeah. So I know I've broken a lot of them's jaws. 2 of them was 2 guys came into the establishment there and named Chico Deals, this old Sprayberry Crossing Shopping Center. One day, 3 of my old buddies I grew up with, they were sitting in there having them some beer when I went in there. I didn't go over and speak to them or sit down with them. I just stood over by myself. And these 2 guys come walking up to me and they said, you're Charles Rogers. It's like, yeah, well, you need to come with us. And I was like, really? Well, where are we going? Well, we'll tell you when we get there. I'm like, nah, if you want me to leave with you, you're going to tell me where we're going. Well, that's not for you to know just yet. You'll find out when we get there. I said, well, no, I won't, because I'm not leaving until you tell me where we're going.
Happy early birthday, Chris. We're here for you.
Wow. So anyway, he said it's been 36 years he's been dealing with this mess.
He'll be 36 years old. This month will be 36 years. Okay, yeah. You've been dealing with this anger that happened to him for 36 years. Okay.
Yeah. So
we're here for you. We're here for him, aren't we, Charles?
What's that?
I said we're here for him, aren't we? And if you ever feel like reaching out to Charles at Facebook, feel free, because I'm sure he would be glad to talk to you about it. You know, if you feel like talking to a guy about it, you know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we're going to have that convention set up here soon from the state of North Carolina. Where survivors can come up and activists as well can share their stories and
yes,
to raise awareness.
I'm hoping that the wonderful rescue mission will be.
Yeah,
well,
I hope
that they can come along and do that, something like that too, with us. You know.
Well, that's what this is about, is getting programs set up that they can provide victims with group counseling, to where they can go in and discuss their experiences and really get it off their shoulders. Because normally, whenever you keep the stuff bottled up inside of you, it can drive you crazy.
The
And it's
bad thing
always good.
is, and the bad thing, even though I had therapy, okay, there's not a dang certain therapist that really could understand. All they do is sit there and look at you like, really? Don't you think I need some kind of leeway to go, a direction to go, to healing or something, and not just the fact that they're just sitting there and listening? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well,
It's like it just defeated the purpose. And so I just basically had to turn to God, and I'm glad God was there for me. Don't get me wrong, but it's like I felt like a lot of the therapy wasn't really designed and out there really to help out to this extent of the damage that was done to a lot of us during this stuff, right?
right. Well, um, the that's the reason why a lot of these uh, young adults wind up on the drugs that they wind up on, is trying to self medicate
Right. And they
and get.
think that and it works. I got so mad, man. I was so jealous of all these people that could turn to drugs and alcohol and they forget, right? I was so mad. And yet, anytime I tried anything, I couldn't forget. And I was thinking, well, I wish something would have worked for me, but nothing was working. You know what I mean? So
Well,
it's like I still remembered. So now, though, throughout the years, I think, thank you, God, for not letting any of that work. You know what I mean?
mhm,
So I don't have to worry that I'm a druggie, that I don't have to worry that I'm on drugs or that I'm an alcoholic, right?
right.
So I could thank God that none of that worked.
Well, one of my ex's cousins, she had been sexually abused by her dad, and he was a Baptist minister slash
Oh
building
boy.
contractor. Okay, and she was the younger of two sisters, and he never was brought to justice. And this is what really gets me, is um his in-laws knew it, and his
Oh
wife
wow.
would not divorce him and have him put in prison because those girls needed their daddy. Well, I'm sorry, that's
Wow.
not the daddy.
That's not a daddy,
But
no,
his
And he's
oldest daughter, his oldest daughter had the guilt of not protecting younger sister from him.
it's like my older sister Sabina. That's that's like her. She said, "I wish I wouldn't went ahead and I wish I could have came back. I didn't know your daddy was gonna mess with you like he messed with me." Da 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 da. And so she's got a guilt to where she can't even talk to me today because of that, guilt that she carries with her because of all the things that were done to me.
Hmm. Well, way she got her treatment, her older sister wound up strung out on drugs, attempted suicide multiple times. She wound up on alcohol and drugs for a small period of time. Her clutch was usually alcohol and going out to party to to escape it. And she realized that she had a drinking problem and what it had stemmed from. So she started going to group sessions, group therapy, and she was able to learn to forgive her dad of what he did, to the point that it no longer interfered in her life like it had done before. She was able
Right.
to pull herself together. I don't think her sister ever could, but she was able to pull herself together, raise her son in a secure environment, and wonderful lady. So she was able to, recuperate after years of, mental damage that it did to her.
Right.
And she saw what it did to her older sister. She did not want to wind up in the same or similar situation as her.
Right.
And so she sought counseling for it and got the counseling that she needed. So, the biggest the biggest mistake someone can have about this is once they, suffer trauma in their life, is to hold it in, not let it out, keep quiet about it instead of talking about it. And that is one of the worst things that can be done. If anything, they need to be going and sitting down in sessions with other people that have suffered the same or similar things that they have in order to let it off of their chest. Just
Right.
bottling it up doesn't do any good. It provides protection for the predator if he or she are still alive and free. It doesn't.
Yes.
It doesn't help matters at all. Telling victims not to talk about it because
Exactly.
they've got to tell someone. So this convention is going to give people the opportunities to tell their stories and share their experiences.
That's
And
awesome.
in order to spread awareness, which of course we got that percentage of people that don't want to accept it. What we don't know, we got that element in this country, and it's the same way in other countries. There's those that knows it's going on in the family, in the community, but they don't want to say anything or do anything about it themselves. So they're really just about as guilty of the people who are actually committing the crimes themselves if they don't do anything to get these people brought to justice.
Exactly.
The beautiful thing about this country is we still have a judicial system better than all the rest of the world, still intact. Yes, it's corrupted, but yes, it can be fixed. We don't want to be under the control of these corporations with their panels of corporate judges to determine if we're guilty of a crime and what our sentence is going to be.
Yeah, just for us, the fact that we tell, then we are in trouble, and yet the perpetrators are the ones that's walking away, and yet the victims are the ones that's getting incarcerated a lot of times.
Well, it's getting to where you just don't know when you go up in front of a judge anymore if you're going up in front of a pedophile that's going to sentence you. If you're guilty of the same thing, they throw the gavel at you, and sentence you to life without parole, and be guilty of the same thing, if not worse than what you are. If you prey on children, it's it's pretty bad.
And yet they try to set you up a couple of times for some of the kids' deaths and stuff that they had done, like Levi Brady and the other, and you were not even in town at that time, so they didn't get away with that like they tried.
Well, they even tried to convince people up there in Murphy, North Carolina. They saw me out in Boulder, Colorado during the Christmas holidays in 1996 and thought that I was the one who murdered John Bonet when I've never been to Boulder or Colorado in my life, much less Boulder.
And yet people had seen you working.
Well, I was in Marietta Christmas Day. I didn't even leave my mother's house until 7, 8 o'clock that night. Now, of course, I went back up to Culberson where I was living, or Murphy, where I was living at the time. Now, that was living over in Martins Creek, not far from Brasstown. I went too far from the Cooks over there. Now, when I first went to Murphy, I was pretty much a neighbor of theirs because I stayed with Dennis Eggwood, their cousin's estranged husband at the time. That really rocked him when I went up there and, put the motor home there at Dennis's house and was living right there by him. They didn't like that at all.
We probably need to get going because it's over the 3 hours. Usually you want 2 hours when we went over. But you want to leave anybody with some words? Because if y'all got a story to tell, if you're a survivor, you need to talk and get the word out. You want to combat this problem, please try to get with us because we are trying to get a coalition going in North Carolina to where that's going to be one of the first places where we want to try to do this at. But we want to go around in different areas getting this coalition going. So if you want to be a part of this, about exposing, about bringing justice, about helping survivors of sex trafficking, if you want to be a part of helping some of these people escape or something like that, I know there's organizations, the wonderful rescue organization and stuff. Maybe they'll come along with us and help out too. You're a survivor as well, Carlene. God bless you. And so if you ever want to come and you want to tell your story, and like that other guy that was doing his in North Carolina, I wouldn't have been able to go. He did a video recording of me, Charles. So some of the people that might not could go from that distance, maybe they would be able to do a recording and have their voice on that thing. You know what I mean? It helps when they're, so far away where they might not can attend. But I think the different organizations, we need to step together and work together for this. We don't need to be dispersed. Let's go and help each other and get this cause done. There's too many out here suffering, right, Charles?
That's right. And that's one thing I want to emphasize on is this girl in 2005 was this 13-year-old runaway from Sandy Springs, Georgia there. Who I wound up with her diary in 2005. She was 13 years old. She was a repeat runaway. Started out as a child sex trafficking, but when she got recovered, she went back to it by choice. And one of my colleagues told me that she had passed away last year from drugs. Now this is the same. This is the same teenager. I turned her diary over to the Fulton County District Attorney's Office there in May of 2005 that launched Operation Long Whine, which resulted in over 107 children as young as 7 years of age being rescued from sex trafficking.
I appreciate you doing all this that you're doing, to try to rescue the kids. You did not, like you tell people, you said, I'm not just sticking my thing I was thrown into this myself from these perpetrators, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
you didn't just assert yourself,
was 1975, and Jim Stubbs still remains buried in Morganton, Georgia, from where my daddy buried him after he tried to kill me in 1975. Danny Hughes, the teenager who brought him to the area we were living at. Okay. Was also a suspect in the homicide of 12-year-old Patrick Baltazar, victim number 18 of the Atlanta child murders. You can look at the composite sketch. Patrick Baltazar's case, you can look at Danny Hughes, 2015 mugshot when he murdered my buddy Terry Owenby. He has been acquitted of second-degree murder, but with my testimony, we can get him for first-degree murder, but that's probably going to be the least of his worries by the time the other charges he faces with these others is going to wind up with a death penalty, period, plain and simple.
This is Danny Hughes right here.
Yes, that's Danny. He's the one who lured Jim Stubbs to Morganton, Georgia, to where Jim could try to kill me. And
had to get off of that person.
mm-hmm. So,
did you see what Carlene just said?
Wow.
She said she's a survivor as well, and people are still breaking into her home.
Well, just feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or Messenger, and maybe I can give some tips that can help. But I appreciate everybody coming in and listening to this. Just for another update, there has been a civil action filed by Mr. Kiss against certain members of law enforcement in Georgia.
Yay!
This is information is also becoming public record too, besides the frivolous tort case that Roger Nance filed against me a few years back for libel. Because I have plenty of evidence support that this is not made up. This is not scripted. This is 100% genuine truth to the best of my ability and my knowledge to share with all of you. But we need as many coalitions for children chapters. My belief in just about every community in the United States.
Yes, we do.
Oh, if anyone that is listening to these podcasts, mention it to your friends, family, people at church, and raise awareness about what's happening there in your community with the child abuse issues. If there's corruption and child sex trafficking, address those issues with your coalitions as well. If you're in the state of North Carolina, especially, and you feel like you have evidence and information substantial against corruption and abuse of power and child sex trafficking, please do feel free to reach out to me. I don't care if you're in Georgia, and or even if you're in Alabama and you believe that this is all connected to the people in Georgia and North Carolina, feel free to reach out to us anyway.
Because even though Gerald Ramsey was supposedly in Colorado, he was in other states as well up north. It's they shared homes together with other people.
Well, his original location of Excess Graphics was over there at Stewart Road and Buford Highway. They're in Doraville, Georgia. They're right at Interstate 285. Okay, what people call Atlanta. It's part of metropolitan Atlanta.
Come on, move down here, Carlene.
Yeah, she's up in Washington State, and we're down here in the South. Wow.
There's a lot of people around there. We all need to stick together, and y'all help my friends here too. Okay. everybody
Well,
just together and help.
well, Carlene, if you're able to start a coalition, I'm certain there's Washington State is a place that well needs one as well in your community. So maybe it's something you and your friends might want to consider as well. There's a variety of things that you can do. You can petition, the state legislative bodies for different penalties for child abuse and child rape. We're child protection activists. I don't consider myself a child rights activist. I believe parents have the rights to determine the disciplinary measures of their children.
See what you said, a
Which
Green
makes
River
it
killer.
very rare that you'll hear that out of an appointed government official, but that's just my beliefs. But
Reason why y'all understand why he said a government official, right? Anybody understands that? Can y'all say one? If y'all don't understand it, put a 2. Why he calls himself a government official? But yeah, Governor Hunt appointed him years ago.
well, that's another thing, Carlene. When you got people like him, the Green River Killer,
Yeah,
Zodiac, you're not talking just one person. A lot of times, you're talking the same group that we are. You know, this Steve Gold guy who's, made multiple attempts on my life before. He's in California now. A lot of these guys, they're nomadic.
yeah,
We're still no telling how many women along the eastern seaboard of the United States that people like my brother Fred Roger, our cousin Robert Veach, John Ramsey, Frank Floyd, Richard Evanitz, who's dead now, by the way, Israel Keys. There's just no telling how many women they're going to find out has been tied to Rex Harriman and this bunch.
right.
Because not all serial killers act alone. They normally learn their tactics from other serial killers. Is a reason why they're less likely to get caught.
Sorry to hear that, Carlene.
And yeah, sorry to hear that myself. But there's these people will travel the country. When one finds a victim, they'll all go out and join them, and you'll have a group murdering a person. But then when one gets caught, only one takes the fall for the crimes, because that's all law enforcement is satisfied with, is getting some form of closure, even if they let 5 of them go to get one convicted. It appears that they're doing their job, and we know that this is one of the reasons why we still have this lunatic fringe that we have in this country.
Yeah, and it's kind of bad too that they'll go ahead and just accept somebody that's not even a part of it just because they might have fell asleep in that area. Then okay, we're going to blame this person because they were only ones in that area right now, but that person's being, maybe a
Well,
homeless man or something. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of awful that they were so quick to close the case, and they're nabbing the wrong people just so that they close some stupid case. You know, it's like it's not really closed that the killers and stuff are still running around out there, right?
well, as sad as some of them have badges,
Oh yeah, that's true.
and some of them are CEOs of major corporations.
You look at Duncan Oil. You know that Duncan guy that we showed a while ago. You know,
Yeah, well, and Sam Senior,
exactly.
you know, um,
Guys at Home Depot that started Home Depot. The
yeah,
poor
are
guys. You know,
taking
look
off.
at all that. You know.
Yeah, um, you know, yeah. I mean, even that, the stuff came out about Jimmy Swaggart, and trying to, you know, um, sexual abuse a 9-year-old daughter of his call girl. Just because they get up there and open up the Bibles and quote out a few scriptures doesn't mean they're men of God. Means
Yeah,
they can preach pretty good, but doesn't mean they're men of God. Um,
exactly. But that's
is
one thing they start throwing in there, you know, that tries to make them look like they're so innocent and say like, "Well, I'm a Christian. I go to this church. I don't care whether you're a Christian and you go to this church. You know, you go like this. You're raping, murdering kids and women and doing terrorist bombs and all that kind of stuff. I don't care if you go to a church. You're just going to that church as a cover up, you know, to try to get away with what you're doing."
well, actually, a reason why a lot of these guys go to these churches is to pick out what children they can prey on. Okay, that are in broken homes. Um, they if you ever want to get a kid pushing white supremacy, get them from a broken home and start filling their heads full of stuff to support white supremacy, and you got a kid that is going to listen to you. Especially if his dad's in prison or being alienated from the mother. I mean, this parental alienation is bad enough in itself. But, children coming from broken homes, or lost a parent, they're the most vulnerable
It
to
was
these ideologies. And
Charles, it was so funny, you know, going in history in the ninth grade at that school that I was, you know, moved from Florida back to with my dad, right?
right.
It was the eighth, or I think it was the ninth grade at that percent time, possibly to the eighth or ninth. But anyway, the teacher, she asked us, she goes, "Oh, she wants to always discuss about soap operas, and people can easily get her distracted away from history by talking about all my children or Young and the Restless or whatever, right?" So
Uh-huh.
she goes, "Well, y'all know that that can't happen. You know, there's been nobody around that's really got like 3 or 4 different marriages and 6 or 7 kids and stuff." I raised my hand and she goes, "What is it?" I said, "Well, you know, my mom had these other kids through, you know, through different men before she ever met my dad and never married them. And then she ended up marrying him and having, you know, 5 kids with him. And then they divorced and she was with somebody else. And then he got 2 or 3 other kids. And then my um, dad remarried and she had 2 other kids. So we got 2 other siblings. So we got 9 kids living at home in that one house." And she goes, "Enough said, enough said." She said, "I don't really believe it." I said, "Excuse me, I wouldn't be lying." I said, "I wish it weren't true."
Well, the thing is, a lot of the victims that I've met in the South, from incest and sexual abuse within the family. Was a lot of times people who were, in white supremacy. Now, I'm
Yeah,
not
he
going
was. My
to say
dad
that
definitely
every.
was white supremacy, and I got a brother that's threatened me because there was a guy that come up to our home, and I let my brother and his girlfriend, who supposedly was a wife, live with us with their 5 kids, with my husband and I and my 2 kids. And that guy had car trouble, so my husband went ahead and fixed their car. And he got so mad at me, my brother did. Don't you dare be talking to a black person, right? Don't you dare, don't you dare. And I said, well, he's a, I don't see nothing wrong with talking to my friend from school, right? And
Mm-hmm.
talking to his wife. This is our home. He said, well, I ever catch you talking to a black person again, and you're with me, at a store or something, I'm just going to leave you behind. Well, then he took me to a store and everything, and that couple was pumping gas at that gas station. And I said, hi, how's your car going? Boy, he cranked up that truck, revved it up. He was so mad at me. How dare I speak to these black people? But I still did, you know what I'm saying? Because he wasn't going to take that away from me. He wasn't going to bully me. And because if he left me behind, my husband would be so mad at him and kick his butt out at the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm
So,
not going to
yeah,
sit here and say that every white supremacist is a pedophile or a choma. I'm not. That's not what I'm here. I just know that the, you know, children from dysfunctional or broken families or broken homes are the ones that normally fall for this stuff, and it's put out here to provoke civil unrest.
yes, division, splits of family, all kind of stuff.
That's right. See, if we had a racial war / revolution, we'd have a lot of orphan children, and we have a lot of orphan children, um, without parents, you know, you pretty much can get anything you want. And
Exactly.
it's just one of the realities we have to face as a species. Is you know, animal kingdom doesn't do this to their young. You know,
Right.
um, but these people, okay, are so degrading that you know they are the law of the jungle. They are the ones who some of them have legislated our laws. Um, um, wait, make the weapons for the Department of Defense. Ed Bentley Jr. He's the manufacturer of the silencers for the U.S. military. John Ramsey was vice president of Lockheed Martin. Okay, because he, you know, designed the microchip and microfilm computer hardware, for the U.S. government and Lockheed Martin. So he wound up in that position because of it.
And I also remember his daddy was into, building runways for airplanes, Jay, right?
Right, man. And Victor Hansen's daughter contacted me, said she's got stuff in the court case out there in Boulder, Colorado, on him, and his ties to John Ramsey and Ed Bentley Jr. and this bunch.
Oh, that'd be
So
cool. I would
yeah,
like to see that.
I would too. So
Uh,
this is all tied in to um, the Gridiron Secret Society.
Carlene
Um,
said she was over there was that around Boulder where you lived, Carlene, before? I really need to think that y'all need to touch base because there might be some information she might have. Denver.
Hmm.
You said Denver.
Denver. Yeah.
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 That's around there. It's, I guess.
But, you know, there's always a community where there's victims. And when you have victims and you start having group meetings, you can form a coalition and help other victims and help spread awareness to where this problem can be more avoided. Um, right now, the greatest threats that we have is children with the iPhones and Androids and all of that that are regulated because that's what's caused the rebound in the production of child pornographic material. Um, things are, looking pretty shaky with the AI right now.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I see.
I'm sorry, I got the hiccups.
Yeah, she moved away from the abuse. You know, but like I said, I don't think there's any family that is immune from this. I think we all got our share of creeps in our families. Some that want us to hush up, others that want us to speak out. Um, because that's pretty much what Jesus told the disciples, that he did not come to teach peace, but the division. He came to set mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, cousin against cousin, uncle against nephew, you know, because this is the subject that will do it. And it's child sexual abuse and child sex trafficking. There's a cult running this country behind the scenes, running the financial centers of this country out in the open. And they're pretty much getting away with the stuff in our faces as we speak. And so if the children are not worth standing up for now, I don't know when they ever will be if this is the case. But I think this is a critical moment. People do their research. They're going to come back conclusive on this. Anyone can Google search the North Fox Island
I sent Carlene
pedophile ring.
your profile thing so she can send you a friend's request
Okay.
if she's not a friend already.
Yeah. And it's going to take a lot of work to
Okay, Charles.
stand up for our children. Yeah, 15.
It's doing that again.
Yeah. But I'm going to call it a night. I appreciate you having me on your program, and appreciate the viewers for listening. And I hope everyone has a wonderful,
Hello, Charles.
wonderful week this week. I hope a lot more gets uncovered that'll help everyone get a better idea about, what direction we need to take our country. Thank you, Carlene, for sharing what you have. All right.
Amen to that. And I want to thank you so much for coming.
All right. Well, you're welcome. And
Yeah, I sent her thing to you. And I want to thank you so much for coming. And I thank you for sharing so much. Yeah, I sent her thing to you. Thank you so much. And I thank you for sharing so much. But we all need to work together to get this accomplished,
yeah, it's it's going to take a lot of people.
We all need to work together to get this accomplished.
You know, the more the merrier. And the more people find out, the much better off this country will be, and a much better place the world will become. Well, good night, everybody.
I'm gonna let you have to finish and say because it stopped working with the mic with my ear thing over here at on my computer again.
Well, any suggestions on how to close it out?
So I'll let you have to finish your words, okay?
Okay. Well, as it says, evil rises when good men do nothing. So, for the men out there, it's time for us to men up, and for the ladies out there, we're going to need y'all to lady up and help us out and support us in all of our efforts. Hopefully this week, everyone's going to see more news come out about Israel because they want to pick wars that they want us to fight, and hopefully this can be a step in the right direction of stopping this nation from going to war after war after war. So this is more than just exposing government corruption, human trafficking, domestic terrorism. It's about hopefully securing more peace for the world, because as Americans, we're on the same page as a lot of people in the world. It's just they're trying to hide that from us. And if we get on the same page with the people that's been dealing with the Zionist state of Israel and what Americans are dealing here today, hopefully we can secure liberty for our future generations. So again, may God bless the children, and may God bless the children of the United States. Good night.
Thank y'all so much, and God bless you. Thank you so much, Charles. Good night, everybody.